Imagine, for a moment, that the day has gently folded itself into night. The last rays of sunlight have slipped quietly behind distant hills, leaving the sky painted in soft shades of lavender and deep indigo. Lamps flicker faintly in the courtyards of old temples, their flames dancing lazily against wooden beams and paper walls, casting elongated shadows that sway like slow dancers across the stone floors. Outside, the air is cool and moist, carrying the faint scent of earth and moss, wrapping the rooftops, trees, and garden paths in a gentle embrace. Somewhere, a river hums a quiet lullaby as it glides past, smooth and unhurried, its current reflecting the soft glimmer of stars overhead. A bell tolls somewhere far away, low and resonant, vibrating through the evening air, and then fades into stillness, leaving only the hush of night. Tonight, we do not enter the world of battles or grand kings, of towering armies or loud proclamations. Instead, we walk softly among those who lived their lives in the steady, unhurried rhythm of temples. These places were built not for spectacle, but for quiet reflection spaces, where every stone, every beam, every corridor held the gentle memory of centuries. Footsteps on worn paths were muffled against the smooth, time-worn stone. Incense curled upwards in delicate spirals, leaving the air thick with calming fragrance, a soft bridge between earth and sky. Inside, kitchens simmered with rice and fragrant herbs, while gardens flourished under careful hands. Courtyards were swept in patient strokes, and small rituals, simple, unhurried, and repetitive, marked the passing of hours. Life here moved at its own pace, measured by the tilt of the sun, the chime of a bell, and the gentle turning of seasons. Let us drift first to the wooden shrines of Japan, perched quietly among pine forests or along the edges of misty mountains. Imagine stepping across the narrow stone path, your feet brushing fallen leaves that scatter softly beneath your steps. Morning light spills slowly over the rooftops, illuminating the carved details of cedar beams. The air is crisp, scented faintly with the resin of trees and the lingering smoke of morning fires. Here, the day begins with the sweep of brooms along gravel paths, the kindling of hearths, and the careful arrangement of small offerings, fruits, flowers, and bits of rice, placed with reverent hands on the altar. Each movement is deliberate, unhurried, and serene, as if time itself has been slowed to match the rhythm of the temple. Now, let us wander to sandstone halls in India, where temples rise like gentle giants beneath the vast sky. The stones are warm from the day's sun, their surfaces carved with stories that have softened over generations. Courtyards shimmer with dust motes drifting lazily through beams of golden light. A gardener tends tender plants in quiet corners, brushing dew off the leaves, while the distant murmur of chanting drifts across the air, not demanding attention but offering calm and comfort. The aroma of sandalwood and marigold mingles with the soft warmth of the stone, inviting visitors to pause and breathe deeply, to feel the patience and devotion embedded into each carved niche and stepped platform. Some temples cling to mountain peaks or tucked away valleys, far from bustling towns, where the wind whispers through pines and the clouds brush against terraced gardens. Here, the silence is deep, punctuated only by the occasional chirp of a bird or the rustle of leaves. Monks and caretakers rise before dawn, lighting small lanterns that glow like gentle stars, tending the hearth, drawing water from stone basins, and sweeping paths with steady, mindful strokes. Each day unfolds predictably, soothingly, the rhythm of work, of prayer, of quiet observation, and generations have passed beneath the same roofs, carrying on traditions that honor both the sacred and the everyday. In riverside sanctuaries, the soft lap of water against the banks blends with the scent of lotus and fresh earth. Stone steps lead down to calm pools where offerings float like tiny boats. Across these waters, the reflections of temple towers shimmer in gentle ripples, as if the buildings themselves are breathing slowly in the evening breeze. Fish glide beneath the surface, undisturbed, and children sometimes lean over railings to watch, their laughter hushed by reverence. Even the most ordinary moments, lifting a ladle of water, arranging flowers, tending a small fire, carry the quiet weight of centuries of routine and care. The architecture of these temples speaks in whispers rather than shouts. Smooth wooden beams, intricately carved stone pillars, latticed windows, and painted ceilings tell stories without needing to be read aloud. The structures breathe with time, expanding in summer heat, contracting in winter chill, and yet they endure, holding within the generations of human lives lived in harmony with ritual, nature, and community. Floors worn by countless footsteps carry both memory and calm, inviting every visitor to tread gently, to become part of the ongoing story without haste or expectation. And so, as the sun dips below the horizon, lanterns glow softly in the courtyards, shadows lengthen and sway, creating a world of shifting shapes and muted colors. The fragrance of incense and flowers fills the cool evening air. A gentle breeze carries the distant sound of a bell, and somewhere, perhaps in a nearby hut or monastery, a fire crackles faintly. Outside, the world may be busy, loud, or restless, but inside these temples, life moves at a patient, soothing rhythm. Every small gesture, every quiet task, every echoing step through corridors of stone and wood forms a soft, meditative symphony, a lullaby for the soul. Tonight, as you lie back and close your eyes, imagine wandering these temples with no destination but calm. Feel the smooth stones beneath your feet, the warmth of the hearth, the faint scent of incense in the air. Listen to the distant river, the swaying of branches, the gentle tolling of a bell. Let each detail fold into your mind like a soft blanket, carrying you toward quiet dreams. This is not a place of urgency or expectation, but of patient endurance, slow wonder, and comforting repetition. Here, history does not demand attention, it invites rest. And as you drift, let the soft echoes of silent temples carry you gently into sleep, where time slows, and every moment stretches into calm eternity. The world is quiet before the sun fully rises. There is a soft, lingering darkness in the air, not empty, but full of possibilities. Mist hovers over rice paddies and gently swirls along forest paths. Dew glistens like tiny stars on leaves and rooftops. The air carries the faint, earthy scent of damp soil, of moss clinging to stones, and the subtle fragrance of flowers just beginning to awaken. Somewhere, a river moves slowly, almost silently, its surface reflecting the dim early light. Occasionally, the faint sound of a bird or the gentle rustle of leaves disturbs the calm, but mostly, there is stillness. This is the quiet moment before temples stir to life. As dawn slowly spreads across the landscape, temple bells begin to sound. Their tones are not urgent or commanding. They do not demand attention. Instead, they resonate gently across misty fields, drifting through empty courtyards, past stone steps and wooden gates. Each bell carries its note carefully, a soft ripple that touches the rooftops of nearby villages. Farmers pause in their early chores, listening for a moment, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. Children still asleep in small homes are stirred by the faint vibration in the air, though not startled. Even the animals in the fields seem to pause briefly, ears flicking toward the sound. These bells mark the beginning of the day, a signal that the slow rhythm of the temple is about to unfold. Inside the temple walls, the first movements are subtle. Monks and caretakers rise quietly from their futons, their bodies moving with a practiced calm. They do not rush. Every gesture is intentional. The sweeping of floors begins with long, measured strokes, straw brooms brushing against stone and wood, gathering dust that has settled overnight. The soft scratch of broom against surface blends with the faint hum of distant bells. Courtyards are cleared, small pathways made inviting, and gravel raked into simple flowing patterns. Each stroke of the broom, each careful placement of a stone, is not merely a chore, it is a meditation, a way of connecting the body and mind to the rhythms of the day. In kitchens, fires are lit in small hearths. The smell of smoke curls upward in thin streams, carrying warmth through the rooms. Water is drawn from wells, flowing into wooden buckets, poured into kettles and basins. Clay pots are arranged carefully, and grains of rice are measured with precision, not for speed, but for order and care. Sometimes, the caretakers hum softly, a low tune that blends with the wind outside and the gentle sounds of preparation. The simmering of water, the clink of pottery, the faint crackle of firewood, these are the first whispers of life inside the temple. Even the simplest acts of preparing food carry the weight of history. Recipes passed from generation to generation, the careful tending of fires, and the arrangement of utensils all follow routines that have endured for decades, even centuries. Outside the temple, the day begins to stir slowly as well. Villagers notice smoke curling from the kitchen chimneys, and the early stirrings of daily life begin. Farmers tend animals, drawing water from wells, feeding chickens, and brushing down oxen before taking them to fields. Women sweep doorsteps, collect eggs, and carry baskets filled with produce. Children, half awake, watch from doorways, yawning, their small feet padding across soft dirt floors. In these moments, life feels simple and harmonious, tied to the slow cadence of the temple. Everything seems connected: the stone steps, the morning smoke, the soft ringing of bells, and the quiet movements of people beginning their day. The architecture of the temple itself adds to the calm. Wooden beams and stone walls, shaped over decades, hold the weight of many mornings. Each corner, each carved detail, tells a story of patience and care. Roofs are designed to catch the early sun, letting it spill gently across courtyards and interior spaces. Windows and screens allow morning light to filter in softly, illuminating paths with a warm glow. The sound of footsteps on worn wood resonates faintly, a reminder of the countless people who have moved through the space before. Even the air inside seems to carry memory, the faint aroma of incense lingering from the previous day, the coolness of stone beneath bare feet, and the soft warmth rising from hearths. Some mornings bring fog, softening the edges of the world. Courtyards disappear into mist, and trees fade into a gentle grey haze. The sound of bells drifts uncertainly, appearing and disappearing as the fog shifts. Walking along stone paths, the caretaker feels the chill of early air on the skin, balanced by the warmth of the morning fire. The smell of damp leaves, moss, and soil is more pronounced, and the small, quiet noises of life birds, wind, distant water feel amplified, creating a delicate symphony of sound that is almost hypnotic in its gentleness. Fog mornings are moments to move slowly, to sweep slowly, and to remember that each day is part of a much larger cycle, repeating patiently without rush. Daily chores follow simple routines. Tools are cleaned and stored after use. Bowls and plates are arranged carefully. Herbs are sorted, flowers for offering are selected, and incense sticks are placed neatly in holders. These small acts may seem mundane, but they carry a meditative quality. Each person becomes deeply aware of the texture of materials, the movement of their body, and the quiet passage of time. Even the repetitive motions, the sweep of a broom, the lift of a ladle, the arrangement of rice become almost musical in their cadence, like a soft, steady heartbeat that resonates throughout the temple. Life in the temple is shaped by rhythm. Bells sound at intervals to mark the beginning and end of small tasks. Fires are tended at predictable hours. Water is poured, food is prepared, and paths are swept in cycles that repeat gently, creating a natural flow that is calming to all who observe it. Visitors often remark on the peace of such places, the way that even the smallest actions seem deliberate, meaningful, and serene. There is no hurry, no pressure to move faster than the moment allows. Here, time seems to stretch, elongating each breath, each glance, and each footstep. The emotional life of those who live in and around the temple is quietly profound. Monks and caretakers often experience a gentle satisfaction in these morning routines. There is pride in tending to spaces that have stood for generations, in performing tasks that honor tradition, and in participating in the continuity of a community's daily rhythm. Villagers may feel comfort simply from watching smoke rise from chimneys, hearing the soft bell tones, and knowing that life continues, predictable and calm, in the heart of the temple. There is a reassurance in repetition, in seeing patterns unfold day after day, and in knowing that these routines will continue long after any individual has left. As the sun climbs slowly, its warm light filters through latticed windows and across polished floors. The shadows of beams stretch and shift, illuminating courtyards and hallways in gentle waves. Flowers in small gardens open their petals toward the light. Birds move quietly among the branches, occasionally landing near bowls of water or resting on fences. The movement is slow, almost imperceptible, but it is lifeful, persistent, and calming. Each element, from stone to wood, from water to fire, seems to breathe together with the rhythm of morning. By mid-morning, the temple is fully awake, though never hurried. Bells have rung, fires are warm, water is drawn, and the tasks of the day are underway. The stillness has shifted into gentle activity, like the slow current of a river. There is a sense of balanced harmony between work, prayer, and the quiet presence of the natural world. It is a balance that has been maintained for centuries, a rhythm repeated by countless hands, footsteps, and hearts. For those who inhabit or visit the temple, it is an environment that soothes the mind, offering space for reflection, mindfulness, and connection. As the morning unfolds, one notices the quiet beauty of simple life, A gardener tends to herbs with careful attention. A caretaker lifts a small basket of rice, arranging grains with gentle hands. A monk traces a path along a stone courtyard, pausing briefly to observe the sunlight playing across carved pillars. Even the smallest details, the angle of a window frame, the curve of a wooden railing, the shimmer of dew on grass, carry a quiet significance. Time seems to slow in these moments, offering a sense of peace that lingers long after the first light has filled the sky. Finally, as the sun climbs higher, the temple settles into the steady hum of daily life. Bells have done their work of marking the start of the day. Fires provide warmth. Water moves predictably, and the rhythm of chores continues at a deliberate pace. The day has begun, not with fanfare or hurry, but with calm, measured movements that honor the passage of time and the quiet continuity of tradition. For those who dwell here, mornings are a gentle reminder that life is a series of small, deliberate actions, each contributing to a larger, enduring harmony. The temple morning, in all its soft, meditative glory, offers a sanctuary from the chaotic world beyond its walls. It is a place where the ordinary becomes meaningful, where each sweep of a broom, each strike of a bell, and each flicker of flame contributes to the tapestry of life. It is a world where time slows, where breathing becomes deeper, and where the quiet presence of history offers reassurance and calm. To experience this morning fully is to walk in rhythm with centuries, to feel the pulse of daily life in its most gentle, enduring form, and to carry that peace into the rest of the day or even into sleep. Before the sun fully warms the earth, before birds have sung their first songs, and before any human steps stir dust into the morning air, the temple awakens in quiet ritual. One of the earliest and most enduring of these rituals is sweeping. This is not merely a task of tidiness, it is a slow, deliberate practice, a dance of hand, broom, and space. The sound of bristles brushing stone or wood creates a rhythm that mirrors the heartbeat of the temple itself, a steady, soothing cadence that sets the tone for the day. In these moments, the temple breathes softly, alive, with small movements that carry centuries of care and attention. Courtyards are often the first to be tended. In Japanese shrines, gravel is swept into flowing patterns that resemble rivers or gentle waves, lines curving around stones that have stood for generations. The rake glides slowly over the surface, each stroke measured and intentional. Mist from early morning lingers in the air, clinging to grass, stones, and temple gates. As the sweepers move, their robes brush softly against wooden beams or stone walls, creating quiet echoes that mingle with the rustle of leaves. This gentle soundscape is not silent, but it is calm, meditative, and profoundly soothing, both for those performing the work and for anyone wandering nearby. Stone steps are polished with similar care. In many Chinese temples, these steps have borne the footsteps of monks, pilgrims, and caretakers for centuries. Each step holds memory, worn smooth by countless feet moving over time. Sweeping these stones is a reverent act. Dust and fallen leaves are gently removed, not hurriedly swept aside, but brushed carefully, almost as if one is caressing the stone with respect. The rhythmic sound of the broom becomes a song of continuity, a way to honor those who have walked these paths before. Even novices, who may be unpracticed in the art, find themselves soothed by the repetition, their minds softening as they move through the space. In temples across Asia, sweeping extends to wooden corridors and cloisters. Here, the sound is softer, a muted swish as broom bristles skim over polished floors. The wood often carries the faint aroma of age and resin, warmed by sun and shadow alike. Each corridor has its own story, faint scratches from decades of shoes, the subtle sheen of hands brushing against handrails, the echo of monks moving silently during prayer. To sweep here is to touch these stories, to participate in a rhythm that is both practical and spiritual. The act becomes an offering of respect to the space itself, a quiet way to honor the life and history contained within the walls. The tools themselves carry significance. Brooms are often made of straw, bamboo, or soft twigs, chosen not for durability alone, but for the gentle touch they provide against surfaces. Rakes in Japanese gardens are shaped to glide easily across gravel without tearing patterns apart. Each sweep, each brush, is deliberate. Care is taken not to rush. Hands grip the handles loosely, moving in harmony with the body, the movement flowing naturally from the shoulder to the wrist. Even the smallest motions, lifting the broom, shifting the dust, tracing a line in gravel, become part of a meditative dance. There is no need for speed or perfection, only attentiveness and mindfulness. Morning in the temple is the ideal time for this ritual. The air is still cool and filled with a faint mist that softens the edges of buildings and gardens. Light filters gently through lattice windows, illuminating dust motes that float lazily in the air. Occasionally, a bird lands on a roof or perch, chirping softly before resuming its quiet watch. Each sound blends seamlessly with the swish of brooms and the occasional sigh of wind through trees. The environment is alive, yet profoundly peaceful. For those sweeping, it is an intimate experience, one of presence, patience, and connection to the day ahead. Sweeping is not only a physical act, but a mental practice. In Japanese Zen temples, the act of sweeping became a form of meditation known as suji. Monks approached the task with full attention, focusing on the movement of the broom, the feel of the surface beneath, and the subtle changes in light and shadow as the sun rose. Each stroke was a repetition, a way to calm the mind, release wandering thoughts, and center attention on the present. Dust became a symbol of distraction or lingering worry, and removing it was as much about clearing the mind as it was about clearing space. Chinese temples also embraced the mindful aspects of sweeping. Here, it was believed that sweeping away physical dust could also clear away spiritual or mental clutter. Caretakers and monks would sweep slowly along hallways, courtyards, and stairways, using the rhythm to cultivate patience, focus, and presence. Children who visited the temples would often join in, learning the value of quiet attention and the satisfaction of small, steady accomplishments. Sweeping became a way to participate in the life of the temple, to honor the space, and to internalize the calm that enveloped it. Even novices and younger monks found comfort in the ritual. The first time a student lifted a broom, their movements may have been hesitant or uneven, but as minutes passed, they began to notice the flow of motion, the sound of bristles brushing stone, the subtle scent of the earth mingled with incense. Hands and arms moved more fluidly, footsteps softened, and the mind began to quiet. Each sweep became part of a larger rhythm, part of the temple's daily life. Mistakes did not matter. The process itself was the lesson. Slow and steady, the act of sweeping taught patience, focus, and gentle care for the world around them. Sweeping also holds a ceremonial dimension. Courtyards and altars were often cleared in preparation for rituals, festivals, or visits from villagers. Leaves, dust, and debris were gently removed, creating a pristine, welcoming environment. Flowers might be arranged alongside clean paths, incense lit, and lamps set carefully to illuminate the space. The act of cleaning before any ceremony was an offering in itself, a way of showing respect for both the sacred and the community. Even in the absence of formal ritual, sweeping was a quiet devotion, a dedication to order, beauty, and mindfulness. Weather and season also shaped the practice. In spring, blossoms fell softly into courtyards, requiring careful attention to remove petals without disturbing patterns in gravel or the placement of stones. Summer mornings brought early dew, softening the earth and making sweeping a more tactile, connected experience. Autumn leaves drifted across stone and wood, each one swept slowly to preserve the texture and pattern beneath. Winter's frost and occasional snowfall changed the rhythm again, as cold surfaces required gentler strokes and careful attention. Each season offered subtle challenges, each day demanded small, deliberate adjustments, and each act of sweeping became a lesson in adaptability and patience. The architecture of temples guided the movement of sweeping. In Japanese and Chinese temples, courtyards were often designed with simplicity and flow in mind. Paths curved gently, stones were placed thoughtfully, and open spaces allowed air, light, and water to move naturally. Sweeping became a way to follow and honor this design. Brooms traced curves in gravel, edges of stone steps were cleaned with care, and dust was guided toward designated corners or collected for compost. The act was collaborative with the environment itself, creating a harmony between human care and natural beauty. There was also a social rhythm to sweeping. In larger temples, multiple caretakers or monks might sweep together, each moving in silence but synchronized in pace. Occasionally, a nod or glance acknowledged another's presence, but words were rare. The quiet coordination created a sense of community rooted in shared attention. Even when performed alone, sweeping connected individuals to the lineage of those who had tended the same spaces for generations. Every motion was part of a chain, linking past, present, and future caretakers in a continuous flow of mindful labor. The emotional layer of this ritual cannot be understated. Those who swept often felt a profound sense of calm, satisfaction, and accomplishment. The work was simple, repetitive, and yet deeply meaningful. It reminded individuals of their place within a larger order, of their ability to care for the spaces and lives around them. Dust and debris removed were small victories, reminders that even humble acts could maintain beauty and order. As the day unfolded, the sense of tranquility carried beyond the courtyard, into meditation halls, gardens, and corridors. Children, too, learned these rhythms. They observed elders sweeping and slowly joined in, practicing careful movements, learning to notice small details, and finding joy in simple success. A child's small hands on a broom, a cautious footstep across stone, a smile of quiet pride when a pattern in gravel was complete. These moments were seeds of patience, mindfulness, and care that would grow through a lifetime. For children, sweeping was not a chore, but an introduction to a world where even ordinary tasks could be beautiful, meaningful, and meditative. As the sun rises higher, shadows shift across the courtyard, patterns of light and dark mingle, changing the appearance of stone, gravel, and wood. Each sweep follows these subtle shifts, acknowledging the movement of time. Light reflects off polished surfaces, and dust motes float in golden beams, visible for a brief moment before settling. The temple, alive with small gestures, becomes a space where time feels slowed, where each moment can be observed, appreciated, and honored. The practice of sweeping continues throughout the morning. Courtyards, corridors, altars, and gardens are attended carefully. Tools are cleaned, arranged, and stored. Each broom rests briefly, then is lifted again. Movements are deliberate, slow, and unhurried, creating a soft, hypnotic rhythm. For those watching or listening, the experience is meditative, a lesson in patience, harmony, and mindful presence. The temple itself seems to breathe with the rhythm of sweeping, as if the act of care sustains both people and space. By late morning, the ritual may conclude. Courtyards gleam, paths are clear, and dust is gone. The air carries a soft, earthy fragrance, mingled with incense and the lingering scent of morning dew. The temple feels ready for the day, not hurriedly, but naturally. Its space is prepared for meditation, visitors, or further acts of care. For those who have swept, there is a quiet satisfaction, a sense of connection to the space, the past, and to a larger order of life. The gentle art of sweeping teaches lessons that extend far beyond the courtyard. It encourages mindfulness, patience, and respect. It reminds participants that even ordinary, repetitive tasks can carry deep meaning. It connects individuals to nature, architecture, and community. And perhaps most importantly, it creates calmer, quiet pause in the day. A rhythm that slows the mind, soothes the spirit, and prepares both body and soul for the gentle unfolding of life within the temple walls. Morning light drifts softly through the latticed windows of the temple, touching stone floors and wooden beams with a gentle warmth. The world outside is quiet, save for the distant rustle of leaves or the slow murmur of a river. Inside, however, the air is already alive with another presence, a presence felt rather than seen. It is the scent of incense, curling slowly upward in delicate tendrils that seem to float in suspension, almost suspended in time itself. The fragrance is faint, yet pervasive, filling every corner of the temple, reaching into small corridors, sweeping through gardens, and lingering in courtyards. For those who enter, it is the first greeting, the subtle whisper that this is a place apart from the rush and clamor of everyday life, a space where the senses soften and the mind begins to quiet. The lighting of incense is itself a quiet ritual. In Japan, slender sticks of sandalwood or sweetgrass are selected with care, chosen not merely for their scent but for their texture and how the smoke dances in air. The caretaker or monk holds the stick between fingers, tilts it into the flame of a small clay lamp, and watches as the tip ignites. The flame flickers, briefly bright, and then the stick is lifted, and the glow softens to a steady ember. A gentle breath is drawn, the incense waved slowly to encourage the first curl of smoke to rise in a spiral. The movement is deliberate, unhurried, almost ceremonial, as if the act of lighting itself is a meditation on patience, attention, and presence. Each stick carries with it a promise of calm, a slow rhythm that will continue as long as it burns. Once lit, The smoke rises in delicate coils, soft and transient. It seems to move with intention, filling the space without haste, slipping past pillars, curling along beams, and weaving through hallways. Its path is unpredictable yet soothing, as if each tendril carries a whisper of the temple's history. In Indian temples, the richness of sandalwood permeates the air, mixing with the faint earthiness of stone floors and wooden rafters. In Tibetan monasteries, juniper branches release a deep, resinous fragrance, grounding the senses with its earthy calm. The aroma is more than mere scent. It carries the memory of countless rituals, the quiet dedication of monks, and the presence of generations of visitors who have paused here to breathe, to reflect, to pray. Visitors often describe the incense-laden air as warm and enveloping. Even before the eyes adjust to the dim light of a temple hall, the nose has already sensed the sacred. There is a softness in the fragrance that invites one to pause, to lower shoulders, and to let the body relax. It can be the faint sweetness of sandalwood, the subtle smokiness of pine, or the herbal sharpness of frankincense. Each scent binds the mind to memory, not just of the temple, but of quiet mornings, of gentle rituals, and of long, patient days. For those who return frequently, the smell of incense becomes inseparable from the sense of calm that accompanies temple life, an invisible thread tying the present moment to countless past mornings. Lighting incense is also a communal act. In many temples, monks begin the day by arranging bundles of sticks on small altars, lighting them in sequence, and allowing the smoke to drift across the central hall. Even visitors and pilgrims participate, sometimes selecting a stick, lighting it with care, and setting it in a holder as an offering or prayer. Children watch, often fascinated by the way smoke rises, how the tip glows briefly, and how the fragrance slowly envelops the room. Every participant, whether novice or elder, learns to move slowly, to respect the act, and to observe the way scent shapes space. The movement of smoke through a temple is almost like a slow dance. In Japanese shrines, it drifts across tatami mats, around small wooden altars, and past carefully arranged flowers. In Chinese temples, the smoke coils in arcs and circles around carved stone statues, drifting past lanterns and mingling with sunlight streaming through open windows. In Indian temples, incense fills large halls, balancing the warmth of the sun with the coolness of shaded stone. It winds around pillars, touches carved ceilings, and softens the edges of the hallways. Observers often report that the air feels thicker, yet lighter at the same time, carrying a sense of intimacy and reverence that cannot be described in hurried words. The scents themselves carry subtle emotional weight. Sandalwood, with its creamy, sweet aroma, is said to calm the mind and ease the heart. Juniper and pine bring a grounding, stabilizing effect, making it easier to focus and feel centered. Other mixtures, often unique to individual temples, combine herbs, resins, and flowers, creating subtle layers that shift as the day progresses. Each layer interacts with light, temperature, and humidity, producing nuanced differences that can be noticed only by those who move slowly, breathe deeply, and pay attention. The effect is gentle, cumulative, and profoundly meditative. Even outside formal ritual, incense lingers. After ceremonies have ended, after visitors have left, the fragrance remains, clinging to wood, stone, and cloth. It is a quiet reminder of presence, of attention, and of care. Monks often note the way the scent seems to carry the memory of prayers and blessings. Long after they are spoken, courtyards and corridors smell faintly of yesterday's rituals, yesterday's offerings, and yesterday's attention. The temple is never entirely empty, for scent holds memory and presence in subtle, intangible ways. The way incense interacts with natural elements in the temple is also part of its charm. Smoke drifts around open windows, catching in a slight breeze and moving outward into gardens or courtyards. Sunlight passes through the haze, illuminating dust motes and turning the air into a soft, glowing curtain. Birds pause in branches, disturbed not by the fragrance, but by its visual presence as it shifts in sunlight. Even animals who wander near the temple seem to move more carefully, respecting the quiet stillness that is carried in the curling smoke. Care in preparation adds to the meditative quality. Sticks are cut to size, herbs are mixed evenly, and resins carefully packed. In some temples, monks prepare incense from scratch, grinding woods and herbs into fine powders, rolling sticks, or forming cones. Each step requires patience and attention to detail. The act of creating incense is itself an extension of temple life, a meditation on process, patience, and care. When the stick is finally lit, it carries within it hours of quiet labor, adding depth and significance to the smoke that rises. The effect of incense is not only physical but psychological. Visitors often report a calming influence that softens thoughts, reduces tension, and creates a gentle awareness of the present. Monks describe the smell as a bridge between earth and spirit, a way to anchor attention while preparing for prayer, meditation, or teaching. The simple act of breathing in the fragrant air becomes a ritual in itself, a slow, natural way of aligning body and mind with the rhythm of the temple. Seasonal changes add variety to the scent landscape. Spring mornings bring the freshness of newly blossomed flowers, mingling with incense. Summer's heat intensifies aromas, making them more enveloping. Autumn leaves drifting into courtyards contribute faint, woody undertones, while winter smoke lingers longer in cold, dense air. Monks and caretakers adjust the amount and type of incense burned according to season, creating a dynamic, living experience that shifts with nature. Even for those who do not enter the temple for prayer, the aroma is a marker of place and time. Villagers passing nearby often pause, taking in the scent and feeling a subtle sense of calm. Traders or travelers who have seen many bustling towns notice the contrast. The busy, loud streets give way to a space where movement is slow. Attention is deep, and fragrance fills the air instead of noise. Incense becomes a subtle guide, drawing people in gently, teaching patience and quiet simply by its presence. The smoke itself can carry symbolic meaning. Spirals that rise toward the ceiling are thought to represent prayers ascending, intentions carried skyward, or the movement of life and time. Even the simple gesture of wafting smoke with the hand along corridors or altars can signify blessing, respect, or continuity. The ephemeral nature of smoke reminds all who observe that time, like fragrance, is fleeting, and that attention to small, slow moments is valuable. By late morning, the temple air is dense with faint fragrance, mingling with the warmth of sunlight, the coolness of stone, and the gentle breeze moving through open windows. Courtyards smell faintly of incense and flowers. Corridors carry the aroma of past rituals, and even gardens are touched by lingering smoke that drifts upward from small outdoor burners. Visitors move slowly, breathing in the scents, feeling the calm wash over their minds and bodies. Children watch smoke curl upward, fascinated by its slow dance, learning without words the rhythm of temple life. In this way, incense is not just decoration or sensory pleasure. It is a tool of mindfulness, a carrier of memory, a marker of space and ritual. It teaches patience, connects generations, and softens the edges of time. The temple becomes a living organism where air and fragrance, light and stone, movement and stillness all combine in harmony. The presence of incense ensures that even in moments of quiet solitude, there is continuity, presence, and calm. As the day advances, the soft haze of incense continues to drift, marking the passage of time gently. It accompanies other temple rituals, mingles with the aroma of food from kitchens, and softens the sound of footsteps on stone. Even as visitors come and go, the fragrance remains, tying together people, place, and purpose. It is a reminder that the temple exists not only in physical form but in scent, in the subtle interactions of air and light, in the patience and care of those who live and work within it. By afternoon, when sunlight has shifted across the halls and gardens, the incense lingers still. Its subtlety reminds all who notice that calm need not be loud, and that attention to small, repeated actions can shape the atmosphere of a space. For those who breathe deeply, it carries them through the day with a gentle focus, a reminder of the quiet order, devotion, and continuity that define temple life. At the end of the day, even when fires are extinguished, altars cleared, and visitors have departed, the air holds the faint ghost of incense. It is a memory in itself, a gentle signature of morning and midday rituals, a reminder of presence long after the moment has passed. And as night falls, the temple exhales its fragrant history into darkness, ready to awaken again with the next lighting, the next breath of smoke, and the next curling tendrils of calm. As the first light of dawn drifts across temple courtyards, one of the earliest rituals begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. Visitors approaching a temple often pause at stone basins filled with clear, cool water. These basins, hewn carefully from smooth rock, sit like small, silent pools of reflection, Some rest upon low pedestals, their edges worn gently by centuries of hands, while others are tucked into corners, shaded by overhanging eaves or framed by moss-covered stones. Bamboo or bronze ladles lie nearby, each one placed with deliberate care, inviting the visitor to perform a simple, timeless act: to wash hands, rinse the mouth, or allow the cool water to touch the skin. This ritual marks the boundary between the ordinary world and sacred space. Each droplet that flows over the skin carries away dust, sweat, or faint traces of yesterday, leaving the body refreshed and the mind open to the quiet attentiveness that temple life encourages. The sound of water is subtle but omnipresent. In many Japanese and Chinese temples, streams have been gently diverted into stone channels that trickle constantly throughout the day. The water moves with a soft, unhurried rhythm, flowing over carved channels, gliding past stones, and spilling into basins with a soothing murmur. In some mountain temples, streams are captured from nearby springs and guided carefully along moss-lined troughs, winding like silver ribbons through gardens and courtyards. The gentle gurgle and ripple create a steady, calming background noise, blending seamlessly with birdsong, the swish of brooms, and the distant tolling of bells. The effect is immersive. The water does not demand attention, yet it surrounds the visitor in a continuous embrace of sound, subtly slowing the pace of thought and encouraging a gentle, meditative awareness. Each basin carries its own history. Some are carved from single blocks of stone, polished by centuries of flowing water and countless hands. Others are assembled from multiple stones, each carefully fitted to form a perfect vessel for reflection and cleansing. Over time, the surfaces become smooth and rounded, grooves appearing where ladles are repeatedly placed or hands repeatedly rinsed. Moss often gathers along the edges, softening the hard lines of stone and adding a quiet green vitality to the scene. Occasionally, petals from nearby gardens drift into the water, resting on its surface before being carried gently downstream. Even these small touches are embraced, becoming part of the living history of the basin and its surroundings. The ladles themselves are more than mere tools. Bamboo, carved and smoothed, offers a lightweight, natural grip. Bronze ladles, cool to the touch, reflect sunlight in faint glimmers, casting soft patterns on the water's surface. Each ladle has been chosen for both utility and aesthetic, a small act of care that demonstrates the attentiveness of temple life. Visitors learn quickly to move slowly and deliberately with these implements, dipping them into the water, lifting carefully, and pouring over hands or mouths with a mindful grace. The rhythm of the act: a lift, the pause. The pour becomes almost hypnotic, aligning the body and mind with the stillness of the temple. In India, similar practices occur at stone or marble basins carved with intricate patterns, sometimes shaped like lotus flowers, or shallow pools designed to reflect the sky above. Pilgrims arriving at these basins pause to feel the cool water against their skin, imagining the river or spring from which it originated. They may run fingers along the stone edge, noticing its smoothness, or simply allow droplets to drip slowly over the hands, as if washing away not just dust, but weariness, worry, or distraction. The water acts as both physical and symbolic cleansing, grounding visitors in the present moment and preparing them for the serenity of the sacred space ahead. Beyond the act of washing, the presence of water creates a sensory environment that is both tranquil and immersive. The sound of gentle flow blends with the soft rustle of leaves in the trees, the distant murmur of rivers or streams, and the occasional flutter of wings. Even wind interacting with stone channels or hanging bamboo creates subtle shifts in pitch and tone, adding a delicate musicality to the air. The experience is multi-layered. Touch, sight, and sound all work together to form an enveloping calm that encourages reflection, slowing the mind's habitual chatter and allowing attention to settle into the rhythm of the temple. Many temples also use water basins to teach patience and mindfulness. Monks and caretakers often perform the ritual of cleansing repeatedly, moving deliberately and silently, demonstrating care for each motion. Children and new visitors are encouraged to observe and emulate these movements, noticing the small details: how to lift the ladle smoothly, how to pour evenly, how to set it back without splashing. The repetitive nature of the act instills calmness, much like sweeping courtyards or arranging incense. The flow of water, continuous and unhurried, becomes a model for the movement of daily life, steady, deliberate, and patient. Some temples incorporate additional layers into the water ritual, Small stones may be placed deliberately to guide water, creating miniature waterfalls that generate faint, pleasing echoes. Petals, leaves, or herbs may be added to enhance the fragrance and visual beauty of the basin. Reflections in the water serve as gentle mirrors, showing the sky above, the wooden beams surrounding the courtyard, or the faint shadow of a passing visitor. These reflections encourage quiet observation, a meditative pause that complements the physical cleansing. Each basin, though simple in purpose, becomes a focal point for both contemplation and sensory engagement. In mountain temples or remote monasteries, the ritual takes on added significance. Water is often sourced from high springs or streams, guided carefully over long distances through bamboo aqueducts or carved channels. Every drop that reaches the basin has traveled over rocks, moss, and soil, carrying with it a subtle freshness that evokes the natural world. Pilgrims note the cool clarity of the water, its taste, and the faint mineral scent. The sound of water, moving steadily over carved stone, merges with the quiet mountain air, creating a profound sense of connection between the temple, the natural environment, and human ritual. Even in the absence of visitors, the basins remain central to the temple's atmosphere. Caretakers may tend them throughout the day, refilling, cleaning, and maintaining the flow of water. Small rituals, such as placing a flower or gently swishing a ladle to stir the water, help sustain the calming presence of the basin. The continuous movement of water becomes part of the temple's identity, a reminder that life persists gently and without rush. The sound, the sight, and the touch of water together create a meditative landscape that encourages stillness, reflection, and attentiveness. The act of cleansing also carries symbolic weight. To wash one's hands or mouth before entering the temple is a recognition of boundaries, a gentle preparation to leave the concerns of ordinary life behind. Each visitor's gesture is an acknowledgement of reverence and respect, an intimate connection to the sacred space they are about to enter. Repeated over centuries, the same acts by countless hands have embedded a rhythm into the temple itself. Every rinse, every splash, and every ripple contributes to a legacy of quiet mindfulness, linking present actions with those of generations past. Water basins are also a space of contemplation. Observing the movement of water, noticing ripples, listening to the faint trickle, and feeling the cool touch against skin encourages visitors to pause. Even brief moments spent at the basin can foster a deep sense of presence, a reminder to move slowly and consider each action carefully. For monks, these moments are integrated into the larger rhythm of the day, bridging the quiet of early morning with the meditative practice of chanting, sweeping, or tending gardens. In addition to physical cleansing, the basins support the sensory integration of temple life. The cool touch of water contrasts with the warmth of sunlight or the soft fragrance of nearby flowers and incense. The sound of flowing water complements the swish of brooms, the hum of chants, and the distant tolling of bells. Together, these elements create a holistic environment in which visitors can feel grounded, supported, and quietly connected to the space and its traditions. Over time, even minor imperfections in the basins or channels become part of their character. Small cracks, worn edges, or mossy patches add texture and history, reminders that these spaces have endured centuries of gentle use. Visitors may notice these details, appreciating them not as flaws, but as subtle evidence of continuity and care. Every interaction, every ritual, and every moment spent near the water contributes to the living story of the temple, enriching its presence and the experience of all who enter. By mid-morning, the basins are fully active. Hands dip repeatedly, water flows continuously, and the sound mingles with other temple activities, sweeping courtyards, arranging offerings, lighting incense. The act of cleansing has become integrated into the rhythm of life, a quiet yet essential thread connecting the sacred and the ordinary. It is both grounding and elevating, a practice that encourages patience, mindfulness, and calm. Even as sunlight shifts across courtyards and hallways, the water remains constant. The trickling sound continues, unnoticed yet comforting, a backdrop to other activities. Birds drink delicately from edges, leaves float across surfaces, and reflections shimmer in ripples. Visitors and monks alike may pause here, not out of necessity, but out of habit and reverence, acknowledging the quiet power of water to calm, refresh, and connect. The water in stone basins, flowing and reflecting, teaches lessons beyond cleanliness. It embodies continuity, patience, and attention to small details. It illustrates the importance of ritual in creating calm and structure, and it nurtures a subtle awareness of the present moment. Each drop carries history, each ripple sustains mindfulness, and each interaction reinforces the quiet order that defines temple life. As the day advances, the ritual continues in measured repetition. Water flows steadily, hands are washed, mouths rinsed, and attention remains gently focused. The basins, simple in form yet profound in function, offer both practical cleansing and a meditative pause. They allow visitors to leave behind the dust and concerns of ordinary life, stepping into a space where reflection, serenity, and ritual guide every movement. By late afternoon, the sound of water begins to blend with shifting light, the rustle of leaves, and the distant hum of life beyond the temple walls. The basins, polished and worn, continue to serve their purpose, quiet witnesses to centuries of devotion and mindfulness. Each ladle lifted, each hand dipped, and each ripple on the surface contributes to the temple's enduring atmosphere of calm. Even as night falls and visitors depart, the stone basins hold the memory of the day's rituals. They are places where water, touch, sound, and presence converge, leaving a subtle imprint on all who have paused there. The temple exhales its soft, continuous rhythm, ready to welcome the next day, the next visitor, and the next quiet gesture of mindfulness. The temple kitchens awaken early, often even before the first bell calls monks or caretakers to morning rituals. A quiet warmth begins to rise from clay ovens and hearths, filling stone rooms with the faint scent of embers and the soft promise of food. Light seeps slowly through wooden shutters or latticed windows, falling in gentle patterns across the floor, illuminating copper pots, bamboo ladles, and neatly stacked firewood. Even before food is prepared, there is a calm rhythm, sweeping the hearth, arranging utensils, drawing water from nearby basins, and testing the heat of coals with careful hands. The kitchen is not a place of chaos or rush. It is an extension of the temple itself, a space where patience, attentiveness, and care define every action. Clay ovens, heated by slow-burning wood, form the heart of the kitchen. Their warmth radiates outward, softening stone floors and wooden walls alike. Small flames lick the edges of iron pots, while smoke curls upward in quiet spirals, mingling with the faint aroma of herbs, grains, and vegetables. In Buddhist monasteries, meals are simple: rice, lentils, vegetables, and occasionally mild soups or broths. Yet simplicity does not imply haste. Each ingredient is washed, sliced, and prepared with mindfulness. Chopsticks or wooden spoons move steadily, stirring slowly, tasting carefully, and ensuring that the meal is nourishing as well as gentle to the palate. The act of cooking becomes a meditation, every motion a reflection of care, intention, and devotion. In many Indian temples, kitchens take on a slightly different form. The preparation of offerings, known as prasada, adds another layer of ritual to the act of cooking. Grains, fruits, and sweets are carefully arranged, blessed, and shared with worshippers after prayers. The process is deliberate and precise. Ingredients are chosen for freshness and quality, their preparation often accompanied by soft chanting or mindful silence. Every hand that touches dough, stirs a pot, or sprinkles spices contributes to the sacredness of the meal. Cooking, in this context, becomes a bridge between nourishment for the body and devotion for the spirit. Even the smallest actions in the kitchen are treated with respect. Pots are washed carefully, scrubbed until the copper or clay gleams faintly in morning light. Water drawn from stone basins is used to rinse vegetables or grains, flowing with the same calm continuity that guides sweeping and incense rituals. The rhythm of these movements, wash, cut, stir, serve, is slow, almost hypnotic, inviting those in the kitchen to enter a meditative state. Hands, arms, and shoulders move in harmony with the day, aligning body and mind with the gentle flow of temple life. Meals themselves are quiet affairs. In Buddhist monasteries, monks often eat in communal halls, sitting in rows upon tatami mats or wooden benches. The food is simple, yet thoughtfully prepared, allowing its natural flavors to be appreciated. Eating is performed with mindfulness, slow, deliberate bites, careful attention to texture and warmth, and a sense of gratitude for both the ingredients and the effort that has gone into their preparation. Conversation is rare, replaced by silence that is not empty but filled with presence and awareness. The shared act of nourishment strengthens community bonds, reminding all that care for the body supports care for the mind and spirit. The sensory details of the kitchen are subtle yet profound. The smell of cooking rice, tempered by the faint smokiness of the hearth, drifts into adjacent halls. Steam rises in thin, curling tendrils from pots of broth, softening the edges of stone counters and wooden shelves. Occasionally, the sound of water being poured, a ladle clinking against clay, or a gentle scraping of vegetables provides a quiet, rhythmic backdrop. Each element contributes to the calm environment, transforming the act of cooking into an immersive, sensory experience that prepares both body and mind for the day ahead. Firewood itself is chosen with care. Dry, aromatic wood burns slowly and evenly, producing consistent heat without overwhelming smoke. Larger pieces are used for heating ovens, while smaller twigs maintain simmering pots. Every log is placed deliberately, ensuring that flames rise gently and steadily. The caretaker watches carefully, adjusting embers, moving pots, and stirring food with precise attention. In some monasteries, children or novices assist, learning the flow of the kitchen, understanding how heat, water, and ingredients interact, and gradually internalizing the rhythm of temple life. The act of preparing food also fosters mindfulness beyond the kitchen. Monks and caretakers carry the focus, patience, and attentiveness learned while cooking into other temple rituals. Sweeping courtyards, arranging incense, tending gardens, or performing chants, food preparation becomes an early lesson in observing subtle changes, responding calmly to challenges, and valuing deliberate, careful work. Even the repetitive nature of chopping vegetables, stirring pots, or washing grains is embraced, as it cultivates a steady, meditative focus. In colder regions, the warmth of the kitchen hearth spreads beyond the room itself. Stone floors radiate heat into corridors and halls, offering comfort to monks or visitors who pass by. Small flickers of flame cast long, gentle shadows across walls, moving softly with the flicker of coals or shifting pots. The combined aroma of cooking, incense, and wood smoke creates an enveloping atmosphere that is both grounding and comforting. The kitchen, though often tucked behind temple walls, serves as a center of calm energy, nurturing all who live within the sacred space. Even meals that are shared with visitors or worshippers maintain the same gentle rhythm. Portions are measured carefully, distributed with mindfulness, and served with humility. Plates or bowls are arranged neatly, food placed deliberately to reflect both abundance and order. The process is slow, reinforcing the idea that nourishment is not simply about consumption, but about appreciation, respect, and mindful engagement. Receiving and sharing food becomes a quiet, almost sacred act, reminding participants of the interconnectedness of life and devotion. Cooking is also deeply connected to the cycles of nature. Seasonal ingredients are selected to match the time of year, tender greens and sprouts in spring, heartier grains and legumes in winter, fragrant fruits in summer. The rhythm of planting, harvesting, and preparing food mirrors other temple routines. Each ingredient has its own season, its own story, and contributes to the overall harmony of temple life. The kitchen becomes a place where the patterns of the natural world are honored, celebrated, and integrated into daily practice. The preparation of meals also nurtures communal connection. In larger temples, multiple caretakers or monks may work together, coordinating tasks, sharing responsibilities, and moving with a quiet synchronization. There is no rush, no loud commands, only a shared attentiveness that fosters harmony. Even novices gradually learn the tempo of the kitchen, discovering how to balance tasks, pace themselves, and move in alignment with others. The rhythm of collaborative cooking mirrors the rhythm of temple life itself, calm, deliberate, and attuned to the cycles of day and season. Cleaning the kitchen is an extension of this practice. Pots and utensils are washed gently, floors are swept, and surfaces are dried and polished. Water flows continuously from stone basins, carrying away residue from preparation while leaving behind a sense of order and freshness. Heat from the hearth is allowed to cool gradually, embers fading into warm, quiet ash. Every step reinforces the same values observed during cooking: patience, care, attention, and mindfulness. The space is restored for the next day, ready to continue the cycle of nourishment and devotion. Children visiting or living in the temple often observe quietly, learning from elders as they stir, chop, or tend fires. Their small hands mimic slow movements, discovering the joy of careful attention, the satisfaction of gentle accomplishment, and the subtle meditation of repeated action. Even playful moments, gently tasting a drop of soup, adjusting a ladle, or arranging vegetables, become lessons in mindfulness. The kitchen teaches both practical skills and a calm, centered approach to daily life. Meals themselves, though modest, are rich in sensory texture. Rice steamed to softness, lentils tender yet holding form, vegetables cooked just enough to release natural flavors, and broths simmered slowly to release subtle aromas all contribute to a gentle culinary tapestry. Each bite encourages attentiveness, appreciation, and gratitude. Eating becomes a slow meditation, a quiet celebration of nourishment and the care invested in every stage of preparation. Fire, water, and air combine to create a dynamic sensory environment. Flames provide warmth, water adds clarity and fluidity, and the air carries aroma and movement. Smoke curls upward, filling spaces and softening edges, while sunlight or lantern light plays across stone and wood. The kitchen, though simple, becomes a microcosm of temple life, rhythms, textures, and scents converging to produce calm continuity and mindful presence. As day advances, meals are completed, leftovers stored carefully, and the kitchen settles into a quieter rhythm. Pots are stacked, firewood replenished, and surfaces wiped. The residual warmth and fragrance linger, serving as subtle reminders of nourishment and devotion. Even after the last meal has been served, the kitchen continues to exude calm, a silent witness to the attentiveness and care that define temple life. By late afternoon, the hearth cools gently, embers fading to warm gray ash. The scent of cooked food remains, mingling with incense from altars and the soft fragrance of nearby gardens. Caretakers may pause, observing the light shifting across stone and wood, the subtle movements of shadows, and the quiet presence of the temple. The kitchen is empty, yet alive with memory, a repository of quiet labor, patience, and devotion. Cooking in temple kitchens teaches lessons far beyond nourishment. It cultivates mindfulness, patience, attentiveness, and a gentle awareness of cycles both of the day and of life itself. Every motion, every stir, every touch of ingredient or tool contributes to a holistic practice of presence, care, and quiet devotion. The kitchen hearth is more than a place for food. It is a center of calm, warmth, and continuity, linking all who enter with generations of caretakers, monks, and worshippers who have tended the temple before. Even at night, when ovens have cooled and meals are complete, the kitchen retains its essence. The subtle warmth in the stone floors, the lingering aroma of cooked grains, the soft traces of smoke curling in empty air-rich element carries memory and calm. The temple's rhythm continues, and the kitchen remains a quiet heartbeat within, ready to awaken again with the first light of dawn, the first stir of hands, and the first soft aroma of a new day's meal. As the sun begins its slow descent behind distant mountains or city rooftops, a hush settles over the temple grounds. Shadows lengthen across courtyards, winding stone paths, and wooden bridges, softening the sharp lines of architecture and nature alike. The day's bustle, subtle though it may have been, fades into quiet anticipation. It is the hour when lanterns are brought to life, their gentle glow serving both practical and symbolic purposes. Caretakers and monks move deliberately, carrying paper lanterns, bronze lamps, or small clay holders across courtyards and hallways. The soft clinking of metal, the faint rustle of paper, and the gentle exhale of breath in preparation accompany each movement, creating a serene rhythm that mirrors the slow pace of dusk itself. In Japanese temples, the ritual begins with delicate care. Paper lanterns are unrolled or gently lifted from hooks, their painted surfaces illuminated by the first sparks of flame. A small wick, dipped carefully into oil, is brought to light, flickering briefly before stabilizing into a steady glow. The soft orange illumination spreads across stone and wood, casting gentle, dancing shadows. Each lantern is placed thoughtfully, marking pathways, entryways, or garden corners. The glow is never harsh, intentionally subdued to maintain the calm atmosphere of evening. The subtle interplay of light and shadow encourages slow movement, gentle footsteps, and quiet observation. In Indian temples, lanterns take a more grounded form. Heavy bronze lamps, often filled with ghee or oil, are lit with care, their flames steady and resilient against the soft evening breeze. The act of lighting these lamps carries both devotional and practical significance. Priests or caretakers perform the task with reverence, acknowledging the sacred space the community gathered and the symbolic importance of light itself. Each lamp's flame reflects off polished floors, intricately carved pillars, and the calm surface of water in nearby ponds or basins. The reflected light doubles the illumination, creating a quiet radiance that spreads gently through hallways, courtyards, and altars. The movement of light across the temple grounds transforms familiar spaces into something magical yet subdued. Pathways glimmer faintly under lantern glow, cobblestones or wooden planks catching tiny flashes of illumination. Shadows sway with the flicker of flame, turning ordinary objects into ephemeral silhouettes. Trees in courtyards cast delicate, moving shapes across walls or ponds. The interplay of light and shadow teaches visitors and monks alike to notice subtle details, to slow down, and to appreciate the quiet beauty that often goes unseen in daylight. Each lantern becomes a guide, a marker of calm presence amid the growing dusk. For villagers and pilgrims, the lighting of lanterns often signals a gentle transition from daytime activity to the slower rhythms of evening. Children pause to watch flickering flames, elders move along dimly lit paths, and monks complete their final tasks of the day with deliberate slowness. The act is a signal to the community that the day is winding down, a reminder to release worldly concerns, and an invitation to enter a state of quiet reflection. Light, though modest, reassures those walking home, guiding steps over uneven paths or along stone steps, ensuring safety while fostering a sense of calm. The symbolism of lantern light carries layers of meaning. In Japan, lanterns often honor ancestors, marking graves, shrines, or sacred trees. Their gentle glow creates a bridge between past and present, connecting generations through the simple act of tending flame. In India, lamps may welcome night spirits, offer blessings, or honor deities. The soft illumination embodies mindfulness, care, and attention, transforming a functional necessity into a ritual imbued with spiritual resonance. For monks and villagers alike, lighting a lamp is not simply about visibility. It is a meditation, a gesture of attentiveness, and a moment to cultivate calm. Lanterns themselves are crafted with patience and artistry. Japanese paper lanterns are often painted with serene landscapes, calligraphy, or symbolic patterns. The delicate paper diffuses light evenly, softening the intensity of the flame and casting a gentle, warm hue across bronze or clay lanterns, whether intricately carved or simply shaped, hold oil or ghee wicks that burn steadily. Their containers designed to shield flame from wind and ensure a slow, even burn. Each lantern reflects centuries of tradition, integrating artistry, functionality, and spiritual purpose into a single, quiet object. The placement of lanterns within the temple grounds is equally intentional. Stone pathways are highlighted to guide visitors, wooden bridges are lined to ensure safe passage, and courtyards are dotted to create pools of soft illumination. Water basins or ponds mirror these lanterns, doubling their effect and creating a subtle, moving glow. The reflections ripple gently with wind or water movement, introducing a sense of dynamic calm. Observers may notice how light falls differently on carved pillars, how shadows shift with the flicker of flame, and how even familiar spaces appear transformed when bathed in gentle illumination. Lantern light also shapes the temporal rhythm of temple life. As twilight deepens into night, the glow marks the passage of time without urgency. Monks may conclude chants, sweep courtyards, or tend incense under this soft radiance. Visitors pause at altars, observing offerings or silently reflecting, while following pathways illuminated by lanterns. Even those not formally participating in ritual feel the calming influence of soft light. The human body and mind respond naturally to this gentle illumination, encouraging slower movements, deeper breathing, and a sense of presence that contrasts with the brisk energy of daytime activity. The scent of lantern flame blends subtly with other ambient fragrances. In Japanese temples, nearby gardens may release faint floral notes, mingling with the warmth of candle or oil lamps. In Indian sanctuaries, the aroma of ghee, incense, and polished wood enriches the sensory experience. Together, light and scent form a quiet, immersive environment, enveloping those present in a gentle cocoon of calm. Observers move through this space more deliberately, noticing textures, reflections, and small details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Lanterns, in this way, do more than illuminate, they encourage mindfulness. The effect on children and novices is particularly noticeable. Small hands trace the edges of lanterns, eyes follow flickering flames, and faces are illuminated in soft, warm tones. Caretakers guide them slowly, demonstrating how to lift, place, or light a lantern. Through this process, the younger generation absorbs lessons in patience, attention, and reverence. They learn to move gently, speak softly, and notice the interplay of light, shadow, and stillness. Lanterns, therefore, serve both practical and educational purposes, reinforcing the values and rhythms of temple life in subtle, lasting ways. Lantern light also interacts gracefully with architecture. In wooden corridors or stone halls, the flames cast elongated shadows that sway gently with the flicker. Carved surfaces take on new textures, appearing more pronounced or softened depending on angle and intensity of illumination. Water reflections amplify this effect, introducing movement and depth into otherwise static spaces. Observers may find themselves drawn to these subtle changes, noticing details they had overlooked during daylight hours. The environment becomes a living tableau, shifting gradually as flames flicker and the sky darkens. Seasonal variations affect the ambience of lantern light. In spring, soft breezes may cause paper lanterns to sway, casting moving shadows on blooming gardens. Summer evenings are warm, and lanterns mingle with the long, lingering daylight. Autumn brings early darkness, enhancing the contrast between flame and shadow, while winter emphasizes the comforting warmth of light against cold stone and crisp air. Monks and caretakers adjust the number, placement, and type of lanterns to suit both practical needs and aesthetic effect, maintaining a balance that enhances tranquility. The ritual of lighting lanterns also has a social dimension. Villagers may participate, placing small offerings or lifting lamps themselves. Children watch in quiet fascination, elders move with care, and pilgrims pause to observe and appreciate the deliberate movements of those tending the lights. The act creates a shared, gentle rhythm, a collective acknowledgement of calm, reverence, and attentiveness. Even without speech, lantern light fosters connection and community, tying individuals together through the shared experience of quiet ritual. As the evening deepens, the lantern's glow softens further, shadows stretch longer, pathways dim, and the air cools gently. Birds settle into nearby trees, insects hum softly, and the distant murmur of rivers or wind through bamboo adds to the immersive calm. Steps become quieter, movements more deliberate, and the transition from day to night is marked not with abruptness, but with continuous, gentle rhythm. Lanterns provide not just guidance, but comfort, assuring all who move through the temple grounds that darkness is held tenderly and intentionally. The reflections of lanterns in water provide particularly enchanting effects. Stone basins, polished floors, and shallow ponds mirror flame, producing a doubling of soft illumination. Ripples caused by gentle breezes or drifting petals create movement, breaking the reflection into delicate, fleeting patterns. Observers may watch silently as the mirrored glow shifts, learning through attention and stillness to notice impermanence, subtle change, and the quiet beauty in small details. Lanterns, in this way, teach lessons about observation, presence, and appreciation. Evening prayers and chants often coincide with the lighting of lamps. Soft incantations, rhythmic movements, and the gentle lifting of hands or offerings are accentuated by flame. The interplay of sound, movement, and light fosters deep calm, allowing both participants and observers to enter a meditative state. Silence between chants is not empty. It is filled with soft illumination, gentle shadows, and the comforting constancy of light tended by attentive hands. Lanterns mark the rhythm of evening, guiding attention without demanding it, creating a shared atmosphere of stillness and presence. By nightfall, pathways are illuminated, altars glow softly, and courtyards radiate quiet warmth. Caretakers complete final rounds, adjusting lanterns, ensuring steady flames, and replacing any that have extinguished. The temple, though resting, continues to live through these small points of light. Visitors return to homes, monks settle into quarters, and children drift to sleep with the comforting memory of gentle illumination. Lanterns have transformed the evening, turning potential darkness into a gentle, comforting, and mindful experience. Even after flames have dimmed or extinguished, their memory lingers. Shadows remain etched in the mind, pathways feel familiar and safe, and the subtle rhythm of light and reflection continues to echo. Lanterns are not simply tools of visibility. They are teachers, guides, and companions in the quiet hours. They demonstrate that light, tended carefully and attentively, can transform darkness, creating calm, continuity, and reassurance. Temples in their quiet endurance are as much defined by what lies beneath as by the soaring roofs and spires above. As visitors enter, their feet first meet the floors, smooth, cool stones that have absorbed centuries of careful passage. Each step is cushioned by the history embedded in the rock. The stones are not cold in a harsh sense, but rather carry a subtle warmth, a memory of hands, feet, and presence that have moved over them for generations. The faint unevenness of worn surfaces invites slower steps, encouraging mindfulness and gentle attentiveness to each motion. These floors, polished by countless bare feet, seem to breathe with a quiet rhythm, a pulse that matches the calm heartbeat of the temple itself. In grand temples like Angkor Wat, the carved stones beneath tell layered stories, etched in relief with figures of gods, dancers, and daily life. Each carving is precise yet flowing, designed to capture not just image but essence. Shadows from setting sunlight or lantern glow accentuate the depth of each line, making the carvings appear almost alive. Villagers or pilgrims passing over these floors may not always notice each detail consciously, yet the presence of artistry beneath their feet leaves an impression, a subtle reminder of human creativity and devotion across generations. The carvings are not mere decoration. They are history, narrative, and continuity set into the very foundation of the temple. Even smaller village temples, though simpler in their stonework, carry similar resonance. Patterns of geometric shapes, lotus flowers, or subtle reliefs invite gentle observation. Each motif, while unassuming, communicates care, thoughtfulness, and a connection to the spiritual life of the community. Hands that carved these patterns long ago likely moved slowly and deliberately, guided by both skill and reverence. Over centuries, these surfaces have been smoothed and softened by feet, palms, and dust, yet they continue to retain meaning. They are tactile reminders that sacred spaces are built not only to inspire awe, but to accompany everyday rituals, footsteps, and gestures. Walking across these carved floors is an act of intimacy with history. The soles of bare feet can sense the faint indentations left by chisel marks, the gentle curves of reliefs worn smooth by touch, and the subtle differences in texture between carved motifs and surrounding stone. The act of walking becomes meditative. One notices how the stone cools the skin, how shadows shift with changing light, and how sound is muted by centuries of careful use. The stones guide movement, encouraging small pauses, slower steps, and quiet attention. They invite a kind of reflection that is both physical and emotional, grounding the visitor in the present while connecting to generations past. Pillars and columns add another layer of depth to the experience. In many temples across Asia, these vertical supports are carved with repeating patterns or scenes from mythology. In Angkor Wat, elaborate depictions of dancing figures, mythical beasts, and celestial beings climb upward along sandstone pillars. In smaller temples, the carvings are less intricate but remained purposeful. Lotus petals, spirals, and simple linear designs that mark transitions between spaces. These stones provide visual and tactile rhythm, drawing the eye in hand along their surfaces while encouraging a slow, intentional journey through the temple. The texture of stone itself contributes to the sensory calm of the temple. Smooth, worn patches invite touch, while rougher sections provide subtle contrast. Stone may feel cool to the hand in the morning, gradually warming with sunlight or footfall. Variations in color and grain create soft patterns that catch the eye without demanding focus. Moss, lichen, or faint water stains from centuries of rain add depth, texture, and a quiet living quality to the stone. Observers often find themselves tracing a line with a fingertip or pausing to notice subtle variations, creating a gentle dialogue between the present and the centuries embedded in the rock. Stone floors beneath temples also serve as instruments of sound, shaping the acoustic character of sacred spaces. Footsteps fall differently depending on worn patches or polished surfaces, producing soft echoes that ripple along corridors and halls. The faint scraping of sandals or the whisper of bare feet against stone contributes to an auditory landscape that encourages careful movement and quiet reflection. Even incidental sounds, the sliding of doors, the clinking of offering bowls, or the soft brushing of a hand along a pillar are moderated and softened by stone, adding to the enveloping calm. The stones beneath temples carry memory as well as form. Every crack, scratch, or polished patch tells a story of repeated use. Monks moving between halls, pilgrims pausing to pray, caretakers sweeping or tending offerings. These traces are not blemishes, but markers of continuity, evidence of devotion, care, and presence over time. Touching a carved surface or stepping on a worn floor allows one to sense the invisible rhythm of daily life across generations. It is a subtle, silent connection, a conversation with the past, mediated by cold, patient rock. Water and humidity often add dimension to the stones. Courtyards may channel rainwater along carefully carved gutters or into stone basins, leaving damp patches that shimmer faintly under lantern light. In mountain temples or tropical climates, moisture encourages moss or lichen to grow, softening edges and introducing gentle color contrasts. Visitors may notice these small natural changes, appreciating how stone, water, and light interact over time. The living qualities of the stone, though imperceptible in a single day, unfold slowly, adding richness to the experience for those willing to move with patience and attention. Stone steps and thresholds carry ritual as well as utility. Many temples feature gentle inclines or carved stairways leading to inner sanctuaries. Each step is designed to encourage mindfulness. The rise is not steep, the surface smoothed by centuries of use. As visitors ascend, they become aware of the gradual change in space, light, and sound. The act of stepping onto polished stone, feeling its cool firmness, and pausing to notice carvings or patterns is itself a ritual of attention. Thresholds become quiet moments of transition, a slow passage from outer courtyard to inner sanctum, from ordinary movement to meditative awareness. Stone also serves as a record of artistry and craftsmanship. Carvings tell stories of gods, dancers, mythical animals, or sacred symbols, conveying narrative through texture, line, and relief. Observers may trace these carvings with the eye or fingertip, noticing both the skill and patience required to produce them. In Angkor Wat, entire walls are dedicated to epic stories of devotion, battle, and celestial beings, yet the stones themselves remain calm, silent, and steady under centuries of sun, rain, and human interaction. Smaller temples convey similar messages in miniature, reminding visitors that sacred meaning is present even in modest spaces. Touching carved surfaces encourages reflection. Hands resting on stone may feel warmth from sunlight or lingering heat from human contact. The roughness of chiseling contrasts with polished areas smoothed by countless passes of hands or feet. Visitors often pause, noticing how subtle variations in texture create rhythm and focus attention. Even small gestuza, finger tracing a lotus petal, a palm pressed against a pillar, become meditative acts, connecting present awareness with centuries of devotion. Stone carvings beneath temples also reflect light in gentle, shifting ways. Morning sunlight illuminates angled reliefs, creating subtle shadows that emphasize depth and form. Lanterns and candles cast flickering illumination across pillars, floors, and walls, producing a constantly changing visual landscape. Water reflections from basins or ponds enhance these effects, multiplying patterns and adding dynamic movement to otherwise solid surfaces. The interplay of stone, light, and reflection creates a soothing environment that encourages slow observation and quiet appreciation. Stone is a companion to ritual movement. Pilgrims, monks, and caretakers move over these surfaces repeatedly, their bodies adapting to subtle slopes, textures, and thresholds. The floor becomes a partner in daily practice, supporting meditation, prostrations, or quiet reflection. Its endurance and stability provide reassurance, grounding those who walk upon it. Over centuries, these stones have shaped behavior and experience, subtly teaching patience, attentiveness, and respect through the material presence of architecture. The quiet stories embedded in stone extend beyond religious narrative. Small imperfections, chips, or color variations indicate human interaction. A finger resting, a foot pressing, a broom brushing across surfaces. Even these minor details create a sense of intimacy, reminding visitors that temples are lived spaces, continuously shaped by touch and attention. Stones are not distant monuments but companions in ritual, silent witnesses to life's gentle rhythms. Stone floors, pillars, and carvings also serve as tactile teaching tools. Novices and children learn patience and observation through interaction with surfaces, tracing lines, noticing variations, and moving slowly across worn paths. The act of touching, stepping, and pausing is integrated into the temple's pedagogy, cultivating awareness, presence, and calm. Each interaction reinforces the rhythm of the sacred environment, emphasizing care, observation, and deliberate action. Even in the absence of visitors, stone carries a quiet presence. Pillars stand firm, floors remain smooth, and reliefs maintain their quiet narrative. Water dripping from roofs or basins creates soft echoes against stone surfaces. Shadows shift with passing clouds or lanterns, producing a living, breathing atmosphere. The stones themselves seem to exhale calm, holding memory and presence in a silent, enduring embrace. As evening falls, the texture of stone interacts with fading light and lantern glow. Shadows lengthen across floors, reliefs gain depth, and polished surfaces reflect gentle illumination. Movement slows, footsteps soften, and the temple becomes a sanctuary of light, shadow, and tactile history. Visitors walking barefoot or with soft soles notice subtleties they had overlooked during daylight, deepening their awareness and fostering mindfulness. Stone beneath temples teaches enduring lessons about presence, patience, and continuity. It demonstrates how materials, carefully chosen and worked, can shape both behavior and experience. Floors, steps, pillars, and carvings serve as more than structure. They become teachers, guides, and companions. They connect present visitors with centuries of prior hands and feet, offering calm, subtle, and constant reminders of human care, devotion, and artistry. Touching the carved stones, stepping lightly upon floors, and observing reliefs becomes an intimate dialogue with history. Each movement is slowed by attention, each pause enhanced by texture, and each glance rewarded by depth and detail. The temple is not merely seen but felt, experienced fully through interaction with the enduring, patient stone beneath. Even as night deepens, the stones retain memory. Lantern light casts shifting patterns across floors, water reflections dance upon carved surfaces, and shadows stretch across pillars. The temple exhales calm, and the stone beneath continues to hold centuries of presence, attention, and devotion. Visitors leave, footsteps fading, yet the stones remain, quietly supporting, shaping, and reflecting the rhythms of temple life. Temple gardens, often tucked quietly behind walls of stone or wood, were spaces of calm and reflection. They were rarely grand in scale, but every element was carefully considered to create balance and harmony. Visitors arriving at temples in Japan might encounter small gravel gardens, where sand or fine pebbles were raked into flowing, deliberate patterns surrounding solitary stones. Each line drawn in the gravel was an act of meditation, a rhythm repeated daily by monks or caretakers. The patterns mimicked natural landscapes, mountains, rivers, or ocean waves, encouraging the mind to slow and contemplate. The gravel itself shifted subtly under footsteps, the sound of rakes moving over stones a soft accompaniment to distant birdsong, and the occasional rustle of bamboo. In China, temple gardens often incorporated ponds, bridges, and willows. Water was central, its still surface reflecting the sky, trees, and temple architecture with gentle clarity. Small koi fish might glide beneath floating leaves, their slow movements creating ripples that caught the light. Wooden bridges arched lightly over water, guiding visitors across with care, while willow branches swayed gracefully, brushing the air and producing a quiet whisper of motion. Gardeners moved along pathways slowly, trimming, pruning, or repositioning stones, each gesture deliberate, blending utility with mindfulness. The garden became a space where human care intersected seamlessly with natural beauty, producing tranquility for all who entered. In India, temple gardens were often small courtyards bursting with fragrant tulsi plants, marigolds, and jasmine. These spaces were designed to awaken the senses gently. The fragrance of herbs, the subtle warmth of sunlight, and the occasional soft hum of bees. Birds nested in these gardens, finding refuge amid flowering shrubs and shaded corners. Monks, caretakers, and visiting pilgrims alike could pause, feeling the coolness of stone underfoot, the warmth of sun on skin, and the gentle rhythm of life unfolding in the garden. Water channels, sometimes lined with polished stones, ensured that plants thrived while producing the subtle trickle that added to the garden's calming soundscape. Gardens reflected the seasons in deliberate, observable ways. In spring, buds appeared slowly, a gentle promise of life and renewal. Each new blossom was tended with care, observed for its growth, and placed in context with the surrounding space. Summer brought cicadas, whose rhythmic hum blended with the trickling of water and the whisper of leaves in the wind. Autumn was marked by falling leaves, which collected softly on stone paths or in quiet corners, inviting caretakers to sweep or rearrange them in patterns that complemented the existing design. Winter transformed the garden into a place of stillness, with bare branches, quiet soil, and frost reflecting the low winter sun. Each season offered its own meditation, a slow unfolding that encouraged patience, observation, and presence. Caretakers moved with quiet diligence through the garden, performing daily routines that were themselves forms of meditation. Watering, pruning, raking, and sweeping were performed slowly, each action imbued with mindfulness. Tools were handled with care: bamboo rakes, copper watering vessels, shears for trimming leaves, all selected for their durability and simplicity. Movement followed the natural rhythm of the day. Morning light guided early watering, midday warmth encouraged pruning or weeding in shaded areas, and evening facilitated sweeping and final observation. The garden itself dictated pace, inviting both caretakers and visitors to match its gentle cadence. Birds and small animals contributed to the living tapestry of the garden. Sparrows, doves, and occasionally larger birds, like minnows or kingfishers, added soft, natural music to the space. Their movements were unhurried, hopping along stone paths, perching on branches, or skimming across water surfaces. Insects, bees, butterflies, and dragonflies flitted quietly, pollinating flowers or resting on leaves. Even small creatures, often overlooked, became part of the garden's rhythm, reminding those present of the intricate interconnectedness of life. Observing these subtle interactions invited a deeper sense of calm, patience, and gentle awareness. Stone played an essential role in the garden's composition. Smooth stepping stones guided visitors through plantings, ensuring a slow, deliberate passage while protecting delicate flora. Larger stones served as resting places, where caretakers or visitors could pause to observe patterns of sunlight, the reflection of trees in water, or the dance of shadows across gravel. In Japan, stones were often chosen for their shapes, textures, or placement in relation to the overall design, producing a sense of harmony that extended beyond visual appeal. Each stone, carefully positioned, provided stability and continuity, grounding the garden in both practical and spiritual purpose. Water in temple gardens was not merely decorative. Small channels or trickling streams carried life to plants, cooled the air, and introduced gentle auditory textures. The soft, constant flow provided a rhythm that mirrored the movement of daily life in the temple. Ponds reflected clouds and light, creating visual depth and encouraging reflective thought. The sound of water interacting with stone edges produced subtle variations, drawing attention without demanding it. Visitors moving through the garden could listen and watch simultaneously, cultivating multisensory awareness and deepening their connection with the environment. Paths in temple gardens were carefully planned to guide movement, attention, and reflection. In Japanese temples, winding gravel paths encouraged slow walking, pauses for observation, and attention to subtle details such as moss-covered stones, miniature lanterns, or delicate blossoms. In Chinese temples, curved walkways framed views of water and plants, revealing a sequence of images and perspectives that invited lingering observation. In Indian temples, courtyards were often organized to allow contemplative walking, with potted plants, shaded alcoves, and shaded benches providing spaces for pause. Each path became a slow journey, a meditative interaction with space, time, and nature. Garden design emphasized balance, proportion, and the interrelationship between elements. Rocks, plants, water, and pathways were arranged not only for aesthetic appeal, but for fostering calm and mindful attention. Each corner of a garden could reveal a subtle asymmetry, a hidden stone, or a reflective surface that rewarded careful observation. The visual composition encouraged slow exploration, gentle curiosity, and repeated visits. Over time, even frequent visitors discovered new patterns, shadows, or reflections, deepening their appreciation for the quiet artistry of these sacred spaces. Gardens also reflected philosophical principles. In Japanese temple design, the act of raking gravel into patterns mirrored the natural flow of water or the contours of mountains, emphasizing impermanence, simplicity, and subtle beauty. In Chinese gardens, the balance of elements, rocks, water, and plants represented harmony between yin and yang, connecting human presence with the broader universe. In Indian temple courtyards, plantings were often chosen for their symbolic value, such as tulsi for purity or jasmine for devotion. Visitors experienced these principles not through formal instruction, but through immersion, observation, and gentle reflection. The garden experience was enhanced by the sensory layering of color, sound, scent, and touch. Leaves rustled with the wind, petals exuded fragrance, water trickled along stone edges, and sunlight filtered through branches to dapple paths. Subtle shifts in air temperature between shaded and sunny areas encouraged awareness of physical sensation. Even textures underfoot varied, from smooth stone to coarse gravel, creating a multi-sensory journey. Walking slowly allowed these layers to emerge gradually, producing a profound sense of presence and attentiveness. Seasonal events in temple gardens added rhythm to the spiritual calendar. Spring festivals often coincided with the blooming of specific flowers, drawing pilgrims and caretakers alike to observe and celebrate growth. Summer brought longer days, encouraging early morning or late evening gardening when light was gentle and the air cooler. Autumn's falling leaves required careful raking and offered subtle aesthetic changes that reflected the impermanence of life. Winter, often marked by quiet stillness, frost, or sparse vegetation, invited inward reflection, highlighting simplicity, endurance, and patience. Each season's change became a meditation, reinforcing awareness of time and nature. Garden work itself was a form of devotion. Watering required attention to individual plants, ensuring they received sufficient moisture without excess. Pruning demanded observation of growth patterns, an understanding of how cuts would influence future shape, and a delicate hand to avoid harm. Raking gravel or sweeping pathways maintained order while producing rhythmic, meditative motion. Caretakers approached these tasks not as labor, but as quiet service, integrating spiritual presence, mindfulness, and attentiveness to both life and space. Small structures within gardens, lanterns, pagodas, benches, or small shrines enhance the sense of intimacy and reflection. Lanterns, lit in the evening, cast soft pools of light across stones and pathways. Pagodas or miniature shrines provided focal points, encouraging pauses, reflection, or prayer. Benches nestled beneath trees offered resting places where visitors could sit quietly, observing water, foliage, or sky. Each structure was placed deliberately, contributing to the garden's rhythm, fostering calm and supporting attentive observation of birds and wildlife added subtle life to the garden's meditative environment. Sparrows hopping across stone paths, bees hovering over blossoms, and small frogs near water edges created a gentle chorus of movement and sound. Their presence reminded visitors that the garden was part of a larger living ecosystem. Observing these interactions encouraged mindfulness, patience, and appreciation for the interconnectedness of life. Even the smallest creatures contributed to the garden's overall rhythm, enhancing its quiet beauty. Visitors often found themselves slowing involuntarily within the garden. The combination of texture, sound, scent, and visual composition encouraged deliberate steps, gentle attention, and prolonged observation. The environment invited pauses, contemplative gestures, and quiet reflection. Each corner revealed new detail: the curve of a branch, the pattern of ripples in water, a shadow shifting over stone. These discoveries reinforced the principle that peace could be cultivated slowly. Through careful observation, gentle action, and mindful presence, water features in the garden introduced rhythm and movement. Small streams, trickling channels, or reflecting pools provided subtle soundscapes, adding depth to the sensory experience. Flowing water, combined with raked gravel and plant textures, created patterns of repetition and variation, inviting visitors to tune their attention to quiet motion. The gentle gurgle of a stream or the shimmer of reflected light produced calm, grounding the mind and encouraging immersion in the present moment. Gardens were spaces of quiet education as well as reflection. Novices or children observed caretakers tending plants, learning techniques of pruning, watering, and arranging stone. They absorbed principles of design, patience, and attention through demonstration and participation. Slow interaction with the garden became a lesson in mindfulness, repetition, and reverence for life. Through such gentle engagement, the rhythms of temple gardens were passed across generations, sustaining a culture of calm attentiveness. Evening transformed the garden further. Lanterns or small lamps were lit, casting warm, gentle pools of light across stone paths, water, and foliage. Shadows shifted slowly, creating dynamic patterns that rewarded careful observation. Birds had settled, water shimmered softly, and the cool air carried faint fragrances from plants and flowers. The garden became a quiet sanctuary, inviting visitors and caretakers alike to pause, reflect, and appreciate the delicate balance between nature, human care, and spiritual presence. In the stillness of night, the temple garden held memory, calm, and continuity. Footsteps across paths became whispers, water reflected moonlight and lanterns, and the soft rustle of leaves reminded all that life continues in subtle, imperceptible rhythms. The garden encouraged slow breathing, gentle movement, and reflection on the small, deliberate acts that sustain both human life and sacred spaces. Each plant, stone, and ripple of water contributed to an immersive meditation, fostering awareness.com and a sense of timelessness. Through careful observation, slow movement, and mindful interaction, temple gardens became teachers. They taught patience, attentiveness, and appreciation for impermanence. They demonstrated that peace could be cultivated gradually, one careful act at a time. Whether raking gravel, pruning a branch, or observing a rippling pond, every engagement encouraged a meditative state, connecting visitors to both nature and the spiritual rhythms of the temple. Temple gardens, though often quiet and modest, were spaces of immense presence. Their rhythms, textures, and subtle beauty nurtured calm, mindfulness, and gentle observation. They reminded all who entered that peace could be found in small gestures, attentive movement, and careful observation. In every leaf, stone, and drop of water, the garden offered lessons in patience, continuity, and quiet devotion. Wooden roofs, stretching over the quiet spaces of temples, were more than shelter. They were living companions, shaped by the passage of time and the subtle rhythms of nature. As one steps into a temple courtyard and looks upward, the beams rise like silent guardians, supporting not just the roof, but the atmosphere of calm that defines sacred spaces. In Japanese shrines, cedar and cypress were favored for their durability and gentle scent, their surfaces aging over decades to silvered patinas that reflected sunlight softly and smelled faintly of resin, especially when rain kissed the wood. The grain of the timber, visible even after centuries, offered tactile and visual continuity, a reminder that human care and natural growth had collaborated to create enduring structures. In Himalayan monasteries, wooden rafters often carried more than structural weight. They were canvases for artistic expression. Carvings adorned the beams, depicting simple motifs or subtle scenes in muted, gentle colors. Over time, these pigments softened, blending with the natural tones of wood and the play of light and shadow. Observers walking beneath such ceilings might notice small details they had not seen before: a delicate swirl here, a fading floral motif there, and feel the layered passage of time in a single glance. The wood itself seemed to breathe with the seasons, expanding with the humidity of summer and contracting under the dryness or cold of winter. Each subtle groan, crack, or whisper was neither alarming nor sudden, but a quiet reminder that the building lived alongside its occupants. Entering under a wooden roof is an intimate experience. The weight of the beams above is felt subtly in the way the air moves, in the way sound is absorbed and softened, and in the rhythm of light filtering through gaps, eaves, or lattice. The ceilings may be high or low, but in each case, they create a spatial envelope that encourages mindfulness. Steps on wooden floors echo gently, footsteps falling in a natural cadence, while the ceiling hums back its own quiet resonance. Even the faint creak of a single joist can be interpreted as a sigh of history, a subtle voice joining the otherwise soft silence of the temple. Wooden roofs also played a role in marking the seasons. In spring, warmth from the rising sun would seep into the timber, releasing scents of sap and resin, mingling with the subtle fragrance of blossoms drifting from nearby gardens. Summer humidity made the beams swell slightly, producing gentle stretching noises that accompanied the soft hiss of leaves in the wind or the distant trill of cicadas. Autumn, with its cooler and drier air, caused the timber to contract, sending soft clicks and pops through the structure, a rhythm that was both predictable and calming. Winter's chill would tighten the wood further, creating long, drawn-out sighs as it adjusted to the cold. Those who lived or slept beneath these roofs came to recognize these sounds as familiar companions, as part of the temple's own breathing. The construction of wooden temples was a careful, deliberate practice. Beams were fitted without nails, using joinery techniques that required precision. patience, and an understanding of wood's natural properties. Mortar sand, tenon joints, scarf joints, and interlocking structures allowed the buildings to endure, not through force, but through balance and careful design. Each beam was chosen for its grain, strength, and compatibility with neighboring timber, creating a system that aged gracefully. The act of crafting such roofs demanded not only technical skill, but also a sensitivity to time, weather, and the slow rhythms of life that the structure would witness over decades or centuries. Walking beneath these roofs, visitors might notice how light interacts with the timber. Sunlight streaming through latticework or small windows casts patterned shadows on the floors below, moving slowly as the day progresses. In the early morning, the light is soft and diffused, brushing against the ceiling and highlighting the grain of the wood. By late afternoon, shadows stretch longer, deepening the warm hues of the beams. Evening brings lantern light or candle illumination, which dances gently across rafters, emphasizing texture and depth while casting ephemeral shadows. These changes occur naturally, without hurry or fanfare, drawing attention to the quiet interplay of light, wood, and space. Wooden roofs also shaped the acoustic environment of temples. The natural resonance of timber softened voices, echoes, and footsteps, creating a gentle auditory atmosphere. Chanting monks, the scraping of brooms, and the quiet placement of offerings all became part of a layered soundscape. Even incidental noises, the tapping of a branch against an eave, the patter of rain on shingles, or the sliding of a door were filtered through the wood, transforming potentially jarring sounds into soft, sustained tones. Visitors learned to attune themselves to these subtleties, finding calm in the natural modulation of sound that wooden architecture provided. Rain against wooden roofs offered its own unique comfort. Drops falling on shingles, tiles, or exposed beams created a rhythmic, soothing pattern. The sound was rarely harsh. It was absorbed by the timber and echoed gently into halls, corridors, and courtyards. Monks and visitors alike often paused to listen, letting the soft percussion accompany meditation, prayer, or quiet observation. The smell of wet wood, mingled with nearby gardens or incense, produced a sensory experience that was at once grounding and immersive. Rain under wooden roofs was not interruption but enhancement, reinforcing the intimate, living quality of the structure. The age of the wood contributed to its character. Younger beams might creak or give slightly under pressure, producing fleeting sounds that reminded inhabitants of their presence within a living building. Older beams, polished smooth by centuries of hands and feet, emitted more muted tones, subtle echoes that spoke of history without demand. Touching the surface of a beam revealed grooves, faint marks, or traces of previous caretakers, offering a tactile connection across generations. Even in silence, the wood carried memory, patiently holding the traces of time and human interaction. Wooden ceilings often framed the sky in small, deliberate openings. Eaves, lattice, or skylights provided glimpses of clouds, sun, or stars, blending architecture and nature. Observers could watch light change over the course of a day or seasons, noting shifts in hue, intensity, and shadow. The ceiling encouraged contemplation. The movement of clouds mirrored the slow pace of temple life, while glimpses of stars at night inspired quiet reflection. In this way, timber framed not only interior space but also the passage of time itself, gently reminding visitors of both constancy and change. Sleeping beneath wooden roofs, whether in monastery quarters or temple guest rooms, offered a sense of profound protection. The beams overhead conveyed stability and continuity, sheltering inhabitants from wind, rain, or cold. Yet more than physical protection, the wood offered temporal comfort, a connection to countless people who had walked, prayed, slept, and worked beneath the same structures over centuries. Each sigh of timber, each soft creak, became a lullaby of history, a reminder that life continued in measured, enduring rhythms. Wooden beams were also sites of artistic expression. In many Himalayan monasteries, rafters were painted in soft, muted colors, reds, blues, yellows, or gentle earth tones, often depicting symbolic motifs, patterns, or celestial figures. These decorations were subtle, designed to harmonize with natural wood tones and shifting light rather than dominate the space. Over years, pigments faded, revealing both the wood beneath and the traces of artistic care. Observers walking beneath such ceilings could trace faint lines, noticing patterns that encouraged contemplation, patience, and an awareness of the delicate interplay between art and environment. The wood itself responded to human activity. The gentle pressure of hands on posts, the scraping of shoes or feet on supporting beams, and the vibration of footsteps along wooden corridors all contributed to a subtle interaction between structure and occupant. The temple was not static. It lived with its inhabitants. Each sound, movement, and touch became absorbed into the slow rhythm of the building, reinforcing a sense of shared history and presence. Even in the absence of people, the wood seemed to hold memory, waiting quietly for the next steps, gestures, and rituals to pass over it. Architectural design emphasized balance and proportion. Beams were spaced to distribute weight evenly, ensuring stability and longevity. Roof angles were calculated to shed rain, snow, or debris, while eaves extended to provide shade and shelter. The design also encouraged airflow, light penetration, and subtle temperature regulation, ensuring that interior spaces remained comfortable throughout seasons. Every detail, from joint selection to beam curvature, reflected careful attention to both function and aesthetic. Visitors might not consciously notice these elements, yet their cumulative effect was profound, producing calm, comfort, and sensory satisfaction. Wooden structures also interacted with outdoor elements. Wind passing through lattice or eaves produced faint whistles or sighs. Temperature changes caused subtle movements, releasing occasional creaks or groans that became familiar over time. Sunlight warming beams emphasized grain, texture, and pattern, while shadow shifting added visual depth and interest. Rain or snow accentuated the material qualities of timber, creating both sound and scent that were absorbed into the temple's sensory environment. Every interaction between natural forces and wooden structures added dimension, rhythm, and life to the sacred space. In Japanese shrines, the simple elegance of unpainted cedar or cypress allowed the natural beauty of grain, knots, and subtle curves to be appreciated fully. Visitors and caretakers alike learned to read the surface, noticing the subtle changes that occurred with light, temperature, and moisture. Himalayan temples often emphasized painted beams and carved rafters, providing visual interest while still maintaining harmony with natural light and materials. In each case, wood was both structure and sensory guide, shaping movement, attention, and experience. Even minor repairs or maintenance were performed with care, respecting both the physical and temporal character of the wood. Splits were carefully filled, joints adjusted, and surfaces polished or cleaned, always preserving as much of the original material as possible. This approach reinforced continuity, connecting present caretakers with predecessors, and maintaining the subtle rhythm that would provided to the temple environment. Every adjustment was deliberate, slow, and attentive, contributing to the overall calm atmosphere. By night, wooden roofs revealed their full character. Lantern or candlelight emphasized texture, casting long, soft shadows along beams and rafters. The interplay of light, with grain, and painted motifs produced a shifting visual tapestry that encouraged slow observation and gentle contemplation. Sounds carried subtly, whether the soft footfall of a monk, the distant murmur of wind through eaves, or the faint dripping of water onto stone or roof tiles. The temple, enveloped in shadow and warm timber glow, became a sanctuary where time was experienced as fluid, measured, and gentle. Through careful observation, movement, and attention to sensory detail, wooden roofs and whispering beams became teachers. They reminded inhabitants and visitors alike of continuity, patience, and mindfulness. The material itself, alive to weather, season, and human interaction, offered lessons in presence, endurance, and gentle attention. Every creak, groan, or sigh of timber was neither problem nor distraction, but part of the living rhythm that defined temple life. Sleeping beneath these roofs, one could hear the slow conversation of the building itself, the timber settling, expanding, and adjusting in harmony with the environment. Footsteps overhead or distant sounds blended into the subtle resonance of wood, producing a lullaby of presence, history, and calm. Monks, pilgrims, and travelers alike came to appreciate these sounds not as interruption but as companions, reassuring them of both shelter and continuity. In this way, wooden temples taught observation, patience, and gentle appreciation. Every interaction, from walking beneath beams to touching carved rafters, connected visitors to centuries of human care, architectural skill, and the living material of timber itself. The roof was not merely a covering, but a breathing, responsive, and enduring partner in the temple's quiet life. In many temples across Asia, sacred words and calligraphy formed a quiet backbone of daily life. The practice was both an act of devotion and a form of meditation. Each stroke of the brush a deliberate, mindful movement connecting the practitioner with the spiritual rhythm of the temple. As morning light filtered through paper windows or small openings in stone walls, monks and devotees gathered around wooden desks, prepared with inkstones, brushes, and pale scrolls. The air was still, scented faintly with incense or the lingering aroma of ink, and every movement unfolded slowly, intentionally. The brushes were dipped carefully, and each stroke deliberate, steady, and flowing became a conversation between hand, mind, and spirit. In China, Buddhist sutras were copied with black ink onto long, delicate sheets of paper. Monks approached the task with quiet reverence, aware that each character represented not only language but intention. Ink pooled slightly in the grooves of the paper, leaving subtle textures that caught the light. The writing process was unhurried, a pause between strokes, a careful adjustment of brush angle, a moment to breathe before continuing. In these silent hours, the temple itself seemed to listen, the soft rustle of sleeves or sliding of paper a gentle accompaniment to distant birdsong, murmuring water, or the faint hum of lantern flames. In Japan, the practice of Shakyo allowed both monks and lay people to participate in copying sutras. Shakyo was not simply transcription, but an immersive meditation, in which the act of writing itself became a spiritual offering. Visitors, novices, and pilgrims would sit cross-legged on tatami mats, backs straight, brushes poised, moving slowly across scrolls that lay before them. Each character was drawn with attention and care, the rhythm of brush against paper steady, unhurried, and gentle. Over time, repeated practice cultivated patience, focus, and a quiet awareness of the present moment. The mind followed the hand, and the hand followed intention, creating a flow that was as much spiritual as it was physical. The materials themselves contributed to the meditative quality of calligraphy. Ink, ground from sticks on smooth stones and mixed with water, had a faint, earthy aroma that encouraged concentration. Brushes made from soft, hare's goat, wolf, or horse responded delicately to pressure, creating lines that varied in thickness and intensity. Paper, silk, or parchment absorbed each stroke differently, producing subtle texture that invited care and attention. The tactile qualities of materials, how brush met surface, how ink spread, how paper yielded added depth to the ritual, encouraging practitioners to slow their movements and fully inhabit each moment. Monks often approached the work with the awareness that their effort extended beyond the present. The sutras, once completed, were preserved for decades, sometimes centuries, carried forward in time as both spiritual and material objects. Even when paper faded, ink lightened, or edges frayed, the care and intention embedded in each stroke endured. Visitors centuries later might touch a scroll, sensing the patience and reverence that shaped its creation, connecting them to people and practices long past. The continuity of this work, repeated day after day, created a rhythm that mirrored the cycles of temple life itself, slow, deliberate, and sustained. Writing sutras or sacred texts was often a communal yet silent activity. Rows of desks or mats were arranged in careful symmetry, providing a sense of order and focus. Each person maintained personal space, yet all shared the rhythm of ink flowing across paper, brushes lifted and replaced, and breaths drawn and released. Occasionally, a soft cough or the faint rustle of clothing punctuated the quiet, reminding everyone of their shared presence in the stillness. The activity became both individual and collective. Each hand acted independently, yet together they formed a chorus of reverent attention, a tapestry of concentrated effort woven into silence. The process of calligraphy was slow and deliberate, demanding a careful balance of motion, pressure, and attention. Beginners learned to watch the flow of their brush, how small adjustments altered the thickness or shape of a character, and how wrist, arm, and shoulder movements all contributed to the outcome. Experienced practitioners moved with fluidity, their brush gliding across paper almost effortlessly, yet with every stroke underpinned by centuries of discipline. The act required presence, patience, and mindfulness. A single misplaced stroke might be corrected carefully or left as a gentle reminder of imperfection and learning. Calligraphy also integrated elements of breathing, posture, and focus. Sitting cross-legged or kneeling on mats, monks adjusted their position to maintain comfort and alignment, letting the body support the calm flow of movement. Breaths were taken with awareness, often matching the rhythm of the brush, producing a subtle cadence that echoed quietly throughout the temple hall. The combination of posture, movement, and inhalation created a full-bodied meditative practice, allowing the practitioner to enter a state of calm, attentive presence, while also producing visible spiritual offerings in the form of written characters. Beyond meditation, calligraphy in temples served a spiritual and social purpose. The words themselves, sutras, prayers, or philosophical texts, were considered offerings to deities, embodiments of sacred teachings, and instruments for spreading guidance. Each brushstroke was both an act of devotion and a contribution to the communal spiritual life. Completed scrolls were often hung, stored, or distributed, carrying the care and intention of the writer outward into the world. This tangible link between hand, mind, and community reinforced a sense of shared purpose and connection across time and space. The environment of the calligraphy hall enhanced the meditative experience. Light entered softly through paper screens or small windows, illuminating the textures of ink, paper, and brush. Shadows shifted slowly as the sun moved, creating subtle changes in the visual landscape that encouraged gentle observation. The hall was often quiet, with only the soft sound of brushes moving across paper, the occasional turning of a page, or the faint breath of a nearby practitioner. These sensory details fostered immersion in the practice, guiding both body and mind toward calm, focused attention. For lay people participating in Shakyo, the practice offered both instruction and spiritual enrichment. Teachers or senior monks guided beginners, demonstrating proper brush technique, posture, and rhythm. Observation, imitation, and gentle correction were emphasized over critique or urgency. Students were encouraged to focus on intention, mindfulness, and the care inherent in each stroke. Through repetition and reflection, participants cultivated both skill and presence, learning to integrate movement, thought, and spiritual focus in a slow, deliberate cadence. Ink preparation itself was a ritual. Ink sticks, crafted from soot and natural binders, were carefully ground on stone inkstones, combined with precise amounts of water to achieve the desired consistency. The sound of grinding a faint, rhythmic abrasion added another layer of sensory meditation to the practice. Each session of writing began with this preparation, ensuring that the act of calligraphy was holistic, the mind attuned, the materials ready, and the body positioned. The careful creation of ink mirrored the attention given to each brushstroke, reinforcing the connection between process and outcome. Temple calligraphy was also an exercise in observation and patience. Practitioners learned to notice the flow of their brush, the absorption of ink into paper, and the gentle variations that emerged with each stroke. Even subtle differences in pressure, angle, or speed produced nuanced outcomes, inviting careful attention. Mistakes were treated not as failures but as opportunities for mindfulness, prompting adjustments, reflection, and acceptance. Over time, practitioners developed a heightened awareness of both physical and mental processes, cultivating patience and serenity alongside skill. The physicality of calligraphy contributed to its calming effect. Brush, hand, wrist, arm, and shoulder moved together in harmonious coordination. Small adjustments in posture, grip, or brush angle were made continuously, encouraging subtle, attentive movement. The repetitive flowing motion created a gentle rhythm, almost musical in its consistency, which carried the mind into a meditative state. Observers watching monks or participants could sense the deliberate pace, the quiet focus, and the serene atmosphere that emerged from sustained, mindful practice. Calligraphy also fostered a profound sense of temporality and continuity. Each character was connected to generations of writers before, 2 centuries of transmitted tradition, and to the rhythms of temple life that extended far beyond the individual. The repetition of forms, shapes, and styles linked present practitioners with ancestors and future participants alike. Writing became a bridge across time. The ink preserved intention, devotion, and mindfulness, while the process nurtured calm and awareness. Even small children or new visitors could participate meaningfully. With guidance, they learned to handle brush and ink, moving slowly and observing each line with care. Mistakes were opportunities to notice subtle differences and refine technique, fostering patience and attention. Through repetition and gentle instruction, novices gradually cultivated skill, awareness, and spiritual engagement, while also contributing to the serene energy of the temple hall. Completed texts were stored with reverence. Scrolls might be rolled and tied with silk cords, placed in shelves or cabinets, or displayed for observation. Even when faded, worn, or yellowed with age, the careful brushwork remained visible, a testament to centuries of patient, mindful devotion. Visitors encountering such scrolls often paused, sensing the care, rhythm, and spiritual attention that shaped them, connecting briefly to a long lineage of quiet, deliberate practice. The rhythm of calligraphy also echoed other temple activities. Daily routines, such as sweeping, watering gardens, or ringing bells, shared the same slow, deliberate cadence. Brushstrokes, like sweeping motions or water flowing through basins, became part of the temple's overall sensory rhythm. Together, these practices created a layered environment in which movement, sound, and attention were aligned, reinforcing mindfulness and calm. Even brief moments of distraction were gently absorbed into practice. A wandering thought could be noticed and returned to the brush, a small ripple in the otherwise steady flow. The act of returning focus mirrored the daily life of the temple itself, in which attention, care, and presence were cultivated through repetition and observation. In this way, calligraphy functioned as both practice and mirror, teaching awareness, presence, and gentle patience simultaneously. The combination of tactile, visual, and auditory elements enhanced the meditative quality. The texture of paper, the flow of ink, the sound of brush on surface, and the subtle smells of ink or incense engaged multiple senses, creating a holistic environment for calm observation. Participants moved slowly, breathed deliberately, and observed carefully, cultivating quiet attention that carried beyond the hall into the temple gardens, courtyards, and living spaces. Through hours of practice, calligraphy instilled rhythm, focus, and calm. The simple act of forming characters, repeated over time, produced steady, gentle progress and satisfaction. Each completed page, whether perfect or slightly imperfect, became a visible reflection of intention and care, a silent offering to the temple and the spiritual world. The quiet presence of ink, paper, and brush created a shared atmosphere of mindfulness, continuity, and reverence. In the fading light of evening, monks and participants often paused, reviewing completed work, appreciating the subtle variations, and gently storing scrolls for the next day. The hall, once filled with soft brush sounds, became still. Shadows lengthened across walls, inked characters glimmered faintly in lantern light, and the air held the faint fragrance of paper and ink. The calm persisted, lingering in the hall, the scrolls, and the minds of those who had practiced. Through the centuries, the quiet work of calligraphy preserved teachings, fostered meditation, and nurtured calm. Each stroke connected human presence, spiritual intention, and material expression in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Visitors to temples, even if silent or observing from afar, sensed this continuity, this gentle persistence of attention. Calligraphy, with its patient strokes and sacred words, became a bridge between mind, body, and spirit, encouraging quiet reflection and timeless meditation. As the sun dipped low behind distant hills, casting long, soft shadows across temple courtyards, the deep, steady toll of bells began to ripple through the air. Large bronze bells hung in wooden frames, their surfaces darkened and textured by centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and countless human hands. The patina on the metal reflected the subtle light of dusk, while the carved inscriptions along the rim told quiet stories of devotion, patronage, and care that had accumulated slowly over generations. Each bell had a unique voice, some deep and sonorous, some high and lingering, but all resonated with calm authority, inviting stillness and gentle attention. The sound of a bell striking its wooden beam carried over stone paths, gardens, and courtyards, filling the space with a vibration that seemed to touch the earth itself. In Japan, temple bells held a particularly measured rhythm. The practice of striking the bell 108 times on New Year's Eve, known as Joya no Kane, was said to release worldly burdens and purify the spirit. Each toll was slow and deliberate, allowing its sound to rise, linger, and fade completely before the next. Villagers paused in their homes or along quiet streets, listening as the reverberations traveled across hills and rivers. Children leaned against wooden doorframes, their small faces catching the fading light, while farmers set down tools, momentarily still in a rhythm dictated by the bell rather than labor. Even those far from the temple felt a sense of connection, as though the sound of metal and wood could carry intention across valleys, fields, and time. In Tibetan monasteries, bells were smaller but equally purposeful. Paired with chants and the occasional clang of a handbell, they marked transitions in the day, meditation periods, meal times, or evening rituals. Their sound was never abrupt or demanding. Instead, it was patient and enveloping, creating a quiet framework for temporal awareness. As the tone rolled outward, it seemed to carry a subtle invitation to slow breathing, inward reflection, and gentle observation of both interior and exterior landscapes. The bells' voices merged with the wind in the mountains, the rustle of prayer flags, and the distant bleating of yaks, forming a layered soundscape that encouraged mindfulness without urgency. The architecture surrounding temple bells contributed to their acoustic presence. Large wooden frames amplified resonance, while open courtyards allowed sound to travel freely. Stone floors beneath and polished timber surrounding the bell supported vibration, creating a sustained echo that lingered even after the wooden striker was lifted. Visitors who lingered beneath these structures often described a sensation that was both physical and emotional. The deep hum of the bell seemed to settle in the chest, aligning heartbeat and breath with the slow movement of sound. Walking along a path that followed the bell's echo, one could feel the vibration in subtle shifts of air and light, as if the temple itself was exhaling a quiet sigh. The process of ringing the bell was an art of patience. The monk or caretaker approached with slow steps, grasping the suspended wooden beam with both hands, and striking the bell in a measured, deliberate arc. The swing, contact, and release were calibrated to produce the maximum resonance without harshness. Hands moved gently, shoulders adjusted, and bodies followed a practiced rhythm, learned over years of repetition. The striking was a form of meditation, focused, intentional, and mindful of sound, vibration, and the surrounding environment. Each strike was both temporal marker and spiritual offering, bridging the present moment with the centuries of those who had struck the bell before. Villagers, travelers, and other visitors often synchronized their movements with the bell's rhythm. A farmer resting in a rice paddy might glance toward the distant temple, feeling the resonance move through the fields, pausing mid-task in a gentle acknowledgement of presence. Children playing near homes would stop, listening, and allow their energy to settle for a brief moment. Monks walking through courtyards aligned their breath and movement with the bell, letting its vibrations guide attention to posture, awareness, and the subtle flow of daily life. In this way, the sound of a bell became a connective thread, linking diverse people, spaces, and routines through a shared sensory experience. Even the smallest aspects of temple design enhanced the experience of the bells. Overhanging eaves, latticed windows, and carved supports all influenced how sound traveled. Light filtering through wooden frameworks shifted subtly as the bell's tone lingered, producing visual echoes that complemented the auditory ones. Shadows stretched across walls, floors, and courtyards, moving in time with the fading resonance. Observers could watch light and sound intertwine, perceiving the passage of time through subtle changes in perception rather than clocks or schedules. The environment itself was part of the bell's gentle teaching, to notice, to slow, and to attend to small, unfolding patterns. Dusk brought unique qualities to the bell's resonance. Cooler air caused tones to carry farther, spreading across gardens, ponds, and distant rooftops. The soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze blended with reverberation, creating an immersive auditory landscape. Lanterns or torches illuminated paths and courtyards, casting long, dancing shadows across walls and paving stones. The bell's slow decay echoed through these shifting lights, producing a sense of time, stretching and folding, allowing listeners to inhabit the present moment fully. Even the faint smell of incense or wet earth enhanced the perception of depth, grounding the sound in both space and bodily experience. Bells also served as temporal markers, organizing the rhythm of temple life. In addition to ceremonial functions, they indicated transitions, morning meditation, midday meals, evening prayers, or the approach of quiet hours. Unlike modern alarms or signals, their sound was not abrupt or demanding, but naturally extended, guiding perception rather than dictating it. The slow decay of tone allowed inhabitants to respond gradually, adjusting movement, breath, and attention without haste. Over time, this rhythm became internalized. Residents of temples often found their own movements, thoughts, and awareness aligning unconsciously with the cadence of bells. The bell's physical presence contributed to its spiritual symbolism. The material, often bronze, sometimes aged too deep brown or green, absorbed decades of touch, exposure, and weather. Carved inscriptions, gently eroded by rain or handled by generations of caretakers, reminded visitors of the continuity of devotion. Each strike became a temporal layering, the sound of the present moment merging with the resonances of countless prior generations. Standing beneath a bell, one could sense history, memory, and ritual all vibrating together, creating a palpable sense of depth and connection. The act of listening itself was transformative. Attention focused on the bell's decay, the subtle shift in pitch, the lingering vibration in the air or underfoot. Even without formal meditation, this attentive listening slowed thought, encouraged breath awareness, and induced a gentle, reflective state. Children, pilgrims, and monks alike found themselves naturally pausing, bodies relaxing, and minds settling as the resonance unfolded. The temple became a multisensory environment. The eye observed shifting light, the nose perceived incense or earth, the body felt subtle vibration, and the mind aligned with the unfolding temporal pattern. Seasonal variations influenced the experience of bells. In winter, the crisp air allowed tones to travel farther and with greater clarity, while snow softened footsteps and absorbed excess noise, making the bell's resonance even more perceptible. Spring brought fresh warmth and gentle breezes, carrying vibrations across gardens and ponds, blending with the sound of birds or flowing water. Summer humidity produced slower decay in tone, merging sound with the soft hum of insects. Autumn introduced cooling air and the rustle of falling leaves, layering another auditory element onto the bell's soundscape. In each season, the bell harmonized subtly with the environment, reinforcing calm and attentiveness. Monks often synchronized breathing with bell tones, inhaling as the sound rose, exhaling as it faded. This practice encouraged bodily and mental alignment, fostering a meditative state even in the midst of daily activity. The physicality of listening became an embodied practice, chest and diaphragm attuned to vibration, muscles relaxing with cadence, and attention focused gently on the interplay between hearing and being. The bell's resonance was thus both external and internal, guiding perception and presence in parallel. Visitors who arrived at dusk often remarked on the layered experience of sound, light, and space. The bell's deep voice interacted with stone floors, wooden beams, and open courtyards, producing subtle echoes and lingering tones. Lanterns cast soft pools of light across pathways, while shadows shifted with each subtle movement. Trees and gardens contributed rustling textures, and distant villages or rivers reflected sound and light, producing a multi-dimensional environment for attention and reflection. The temple became a space where all senses collaborated to encourage calm, awareness, and presence. Even when multiple bells were present, each retained a distinct character. Large bells provided the grounding, sonorous tones that defined time. Smaller bells added delicate, melodic accompaniment, punctuating chants or marking transitions within rituals. Their interplay created a gentle polyphony, complex yet never hurried. Participants learned to attend to differences in timbre, volume, and resonance, refining listening skills and deepening sensory awareness. The experience was immersive. Sound, light, and movement coalesced into a slow, deliberate meditation conducted through everyday temple life. Over centuries, bell-ringing practices persisted with remarkable continuity. The same sequences, patterns, and temporal markers passed from generation to generation. Novices learned from mentors, villagers listened and participated, and travelers observed or joined in quiet reflection. The sound of bells became a cultural thread, weaving together history, daily life, and spiritual practice. Even when temples were physically altered or rebuilt, the auditory tradition remained, ensuring continuity of rhythm, calm, and presence across time. The final strikes at dusk often signaled the transition to evening silence. Lanterns glimmered in courtyards, shadows lengthened, and human activity slowed. The bell's lingering vibration became part of a broader sensory tapestry. The smell of incense, the faint taste of evening air, the touch of cool stone underfoot. As the last echoes faded, a profound stillness settled over the temple, offering rest, reflection, and the soft awareness of time's gentle passage. In this way, temple bells at dusk became not merely instruments but teachers, guiding attention, cultivating patience, and embodying centuries of quiet devotion. At temple entrances across Asia, there was a gentle and deliberate pause, a moment when the world of dust, noise, and hurried movement was left behind, and the quiet, sacred space of the temple began. Shoes, sandals, straws, slippers, and leather footwear were removed and arranged neatly in rows along the thresholds, forming a humble barrier between the ordinary and the sacred. The visual order of these shoes, varying in size, color, and texture, created a quiet tapestry of human presence. Each pair represented a person, a story, or a journey. Some were worn smooth from daily use, the soles thin and patterned with years of travel. Others were new, carrying a faint, fresh scent of leather or straw. Together, they formed a mosaic of lives converging at the temple, a silent acknowledgement of respect, humility, and intention. For children, the act of removing shoes was often a hurried ritual, undertaken with eagerness and curiosity. Tiny hands struggled to untie straps or slip feet from sandals, all while watching the elders move slowly, deliberately, with care and awareness. In their haste, children often paused mid-step, glancing at the cool stone beneath the threshold, feeling the smoothness of wood or the slight roughness of worn stone beneath their soles. This tactile introduction to the temple space created early impressions of mindfulness, teaching that every movement, even entering, could be deliberate and conscious. Travelers, on the other hand, approached the threshold with a different awareness. After hours or days on dusty roads, their shoes carried the textures, scents, and heat of distant lands. Removing footwear became an act of release, letting go of accumulated fatigue, and a small surrender to the quiet of the temple. The coolness of stone or polished wood beneath bare feet contrasted with the weight of travel, creating a gentle sensory reminder to slow down. Some adjusted straps or slipped their feet from leather shoes with deliberate care, while others lingered, placing worn sandals neatly aside and absorbing the first impressions of serenity. The simple act of leaving shoes at the threshold served as a bridge, marking a transition from movement to stillness, from the profane to the sacred, from external concerns to internal presence. In Japanese temples, this practice was codified into daily life with subtle elegance. Tatami mats and polished wooden floors awaited bare feet, offering both comfort and a symbolic separation from the outside world. Stepping onto these surfaces carried a slight friction, the warmth of human touch slowly absorbing into the wood, leaving faint impressions of presence behind. Every visitor contributed to this living surface, the collective rhythm of feet tracing soft patterns across hallways and corridors. The tactile intimacy encouraged quiet observation, gentle awareness of movement, and a slow attunement to the space, creating a calm, meditative environment from the very first step. In Indian temples, stone thresholds carried both the coolness of marble and the subtle texture of worn sandstone. Each step was an intimate engagement with history. Thousands of devotees before had removed their footwear, leaving behind invisible traces of devotion and intention. The cool stone was grounding, anchoring the body and mind to the present moment. Pilgrims often paused, feeling the contrast between their bare feet and the residual warmth of stone heated by the sun during the day. The simple act of removing shoes became a ritual of humility, preparation, and attention, reminding all who entered that they were stepping into a space shaped by centuries of care, prayer, and quiet devotion. Tibetan monasteries added another layer to the experience. Visitors navigated thresholds covered in woven mats, with shoes set aside in neat rows along narrow shelves or platforms. The sound of footwear being placed down, soft thuds, scraping of leather, or the faint rustle of straw became part of the auditory landscape of the temple. It marked the transition from external activity to internal focus, the slow movement of bodies echoing the broader rhythm of temple life. Monks and lay people alike moved barefoot along corridors and courtyards, their steps muted, deliberate, and attentive. Over time, the rhythm of bare feet interacting with stone, wood matting became a subtle but constant meditation on presence and awareness. Children often learned patience and observation through this ritual. Watching the slow movements of elders, they saw how care and intention extended to the simplest actions. Some copied these movements immediately, mimicking the precise removal of sandals, the careful placement along the threshold, and the quiet steps across polished surfaces. Others needed gentle guidance, taught through repeated observation and soft correction. The process of removing shoes became an early lesson in mindfulness. The body learned to move slowly. The senses became attuned to texture and temperature, and the mind practiced awareness, all before entering the main temple halls. The arrangement of footwear also carried a subtle aesthetic and cultural order. Shoes were often placed neatly side by side, aligned with thresholds or shelves, forming harmonious lines that echoed the symmetry of temple architecture. Small differences in size, shape, or material were respected rather than corrected, creating a balanced mosaic that reflected the diversity of the people who visited. Observers might notice the contrast between large, worn sandals and tiny, delicate slippers, the faint scuff marks, the fading color, or the soft patina of long use. Each shoe carried history and individuality, yet all contributed to the collective quiet of the threshold, preparing visitors for the calm interior beyond. The tactile and auditory experience of stepping barefoot was significant. The coolness of stone, the smoothness of polished wood, or the woven texture of mats grounded the body, inviting careful, deliberate steps. Small sounds, the gentle scraping of toes, the soft slap of soles on timber, the faint squeak of friction created a rhythm aligned with the temple's quiet ambience. Every step became an exercise in mindfulness, a conscious engagement with the environment, and a physical preparation for the mental and spiritual stillness expected inside. Removing shoes was also a practice in humility. To shed one's footwear was to acknowledge that the temple held sacred authority, that the space within demanded reverence, and that the body entering it needed to slow, soften, and participate fully in its atmosphere. It was a quiet ritual, repeated countless times across centuries, that communicated respect without words, discipline without force, and mindfulness without complexity. Even visitors unfamiliar with religious practice found themselves influenced by the gesture, adopting a slower pace, lowered gaze, and gentle posture as they crossed thresholds barefoot. The act of leaving shoes at the threshold also functioned as a subtle social equalizer. All who entered, regardless of status, wealth, or origin, participated in the same ritual. Royalty and commoners alike set aside footwear, experiencing the same tactile transition from outside to inside. This egalitarian quality emphasized presence, attention, and shared respect over hierarchy. In doing so, the temple created a level space of quiet mindfulness, reminding all visitors that inside these walls, devotion, awareness, and gentle attention mattered more than worldly distinctions. Beyond symbolic and social meaning, practical considerations shaped the ritual. Stone floors, polished wood, and delicate mats were protected from dirt, debris, and wear. Removing shoes preserved the integrity of the interior surfaces, allowing them to maintain their aesthetic beauty, smooth texture, and subtle temperature balance. In this way, the ritual served both spiritual and functional purposes, merging care for the sacred environment with attention to presence and mindfulness. The sensory dimensions of the threshold were also significant. The contrast between the outside world, dusty warm, or uneven, and the cool, smooth interior surfaces was immediately perceptible. Feet became more aware of temperature, texture, and stability. The act of slowing movement to adjust or remove shoes naturally brought attention to posture, balance, and alignment. In this way, the simple ritual of footwear removal became an embodied meditation, fostering awareness of self, environment, and temporal transition. Children, travelers, and seasoned visitors alike noticed subtle changes in texture underfoot as they crossed the threshold. Smooth stone carried faint residual warmth from the sun. Polished wood held impressions of countless footsteps. Woven mats absorbed sound and movement, providing cushioning and tactile feedback. These details created a multisensory introduction to temple life, conditioning the body to quiet movement, careful steps, and gentle awareness. Even small imperfections, cracks in stone, knots in timber, fraying edges of mats became points of observation, encouraging attention to detail and present moment awareness. The transition from outside to inside was not rushed. Some visitors lingered briefly, feeling the threshold underfoot, observing the orderly arrangement of shoes, and taking a moment to breathe. Others moved slowly into hallways, carrying the tactile awareness forward into corridors, courtyards, or main halls. The act of leaving footwear behind established an intentional pause, a physical and symbolic preparation that allowed the mind and body to align with the temple's rhythm. Over time, repeated visits created a habitual recognition of this pause, making the ritual itself a form of grounding, reflection, and gentle anticipation. Even the faint sounds of shoes being placed or shuffled contributed to the temple's ambience. The soft clatter of sandals, the gentle scraping of leather, and the near-silent rustle of straw slippers created a layered auditory texture, echoing softly across stone or wood. These incidental sounds, though minimal, reinforced the sense of transition, reminding all present that a change in space and attention was occurring. The auditory environment, combined with tactile and visual cues, created a multi-dimensional experience, supporting mindfulness and calm. Thresholds also reinforced spatial awareness. Stepping over or around a line of shoes required gentle navigation, encouraging careful foot placement and observation. Visitors adjusted speed, posture, and attention as they crossed, aligning their movement with the temple's slower rhythm. In doing so, the threshold became a small, daily lesson in patience, attentiveness, and bodily mindfulness. Each crossing was a rehearsal in careful observation, bodily awareness, and respectful behavior, qualities that extended naturally into broader temple life. The placement and care of shoes were often guided by custom and observation. Shoes were aligned neatly, sometimes in pairs, sometimes by size or type, demonstrating care and consideration for both order and communal respect. Even small deviations, an errant sandal or slightly misaligned slipper, were accepted gently, reinforcing flexibility and observation without rigidity. The threshold became a space for quiet learning, how to move carefully, how to notice small differences, and how to honor both space and fellow visitors through mindful placement. Over centuries, this simple ritual continued largely unchanged. Shoes left at thresholds, whether in grand temples or small village sanctuaries, maintained both practical and symbolic purpose. Each act connected the individual with centuries of temple visitors who had performed the same gesture, cultivating a sense of continuity, presence, and reverence. The threshold became a liminal space where the ordinary world slowed and the sacred interior began a tactile, visual, auditory, and symbolic bridge from everyday life into stillness, reflection, and gentle attention. The cumulative effect of this practice shaped the sensory, emotional, and spiritual environment of the temple. Visitors entered with awareness, grounded in touch, observation, and humility. The act of removing footwear encouraged slower movement, heightened attention, and a subtle alignment with the temple's rhythm. Inside, the mind and body were prepared for prayer, meditation, contemplation, or quiet observation. Even brief interactions, adjusting straps, slipping feet from sandals, or lining up shoes, neatly supported a broader culture of calm, attention, and shared respect. By the time the visitor stepped fully into the temple halls, barefoot and grounded, the threshold ritual had already fulfilled its purpose. The body was attentive, the mind slowed, and the spirit ready to inhabit the quiet, sacred space. Shoes left behind, neatly arranged, told silent stories of preparation, humility, and devotion. They marked not just the crossing of space, but a passage into a slower, more deliberate rhythm of life, a rhythm cultivated over centuries, nurtured in countless temples, and carried forward in every careful, barefoot step. Though the stone walls of temples stood firmly in place, unyielding to wind, sun, and rain, the changing seasons brought subtle transformations that shaped daily life within. In spring, petals drifted slowly from blossoming trees, carried by gentle breezes across courtyards and stone paths. Cherry blossoms in Japan scattered like pale snow, tulsi leaves in India filled the air with faint fragrance, and peach trees in China adorned gardens with soft pink hues. Monks moved deliberately through these petals, sweeping them into gentle piles or leaving them to mark the passage of time, observing each bloom fall with quiet attentiveness. The scent, color, and texture of spring offered gentle reminders of renewal, subtle impermanence, and the continuous rhythm of life. Even visitors arriving from outside felt the soft hush of petals underfoot, noticing how the seasonal shift altered light, shadow, and scent, inviting slow steps and reflective breaths. Summer brought a different energy. Stone floors and courtyards radiated warmth under the sun, encouraging coolness beneath shaded corridors and verandas. Cicadas sang tirelessly in the heat, their buzzing a constant backdrop to meditation and prayer. Small ponds in temple gardens reflected sunlight, while leaves on trees shifted and whispered in the soft summer breeze. Monks adjusted their robes to lighter fabrics. Sandals were exchanged for cooler versions, and water was drawn frequently from wells and basins to maintain comfort. Kitchens adapted as well, preparing lighter meals, stewing vegetables that resisted spoilage, or soaking grains in preparation for the heat of midday. Summer, though intense, was quiet in rhythm, a time to cultivate endurance, mindfulness, and presence, attuning both body and mind to the slower, natural cadence of the temple's surroundings. As the heat of summer waned, autumn arrived with muted elegance. Leaves drifted lazily from trees, carpeting stone paths and wooden verandas with gold, crimson, and amber. Courtyards seemed softer in color. The light mellowed, and air carried a faint crispness that hinted at approaching cold. Monks swept leaves with patient care, gathering small piles and observing the natural decay as part of the life cycle. Kitchen fires were stoked earlier in the day, providing warmth and preparing heartier meals, while incense burned steadily to imbue spaces with comfort against the cooler air. Visitors strolling through courtyards noticed how shadows lengthened along polished wood and stone, and how each step among fallen leaves required gentle care. Autumn was a season of reflection, a time to observe transition, appreciate impermanence, and recognize the subtle rhythms that governed both the natural world and human activity within temple walls. Winter introduced a stillness that deepened the contemplative life of the temple. Frost formed delicate patterns on rooftops and courtyards. Frozen ponds glimmered in the weak winter sun, and stone floors became slightly chilled beneath bare feet. Kitchens burned brighter fires, warming stone floors and offering hearty meals that nourished both body and spirit. Monks wrapped themselves in heavier robes, their footsteps softened by layers of straw mats and rugs laid to insulate interiors. Courtyards became quieter, the usual summer chorus of insects and birds replaced by the faint rustle of wind through bare branches. Visitors stepping into these frozen gardens experienced a calm distinct from any other season. The crisp air sharpened awareness, while the quiet expanse encouraged inward reflection. Winter, though still and cold, carried warmth in ritual, preparation, and the gentle hum of human presence within walls designed to endure. Throughout the year, the temple itself remained largely unchanged in structure, yet each season offered subtle, almost imperceptible shifts that altered the experience of space. Light passed differently through windows, carving new patterns across stone and wood. Shadows lengthened or shortened with the sun's path. Air carried varied scents from blossoms, drying leaves, or fires. Each corridor, courtyard, or garden became subtly new with the season, teaching visitors and residents alike to notice, observe, and attend to detail. Even the smallest elements, the faint rustle of leaves, the cooling of stone underfoot, or the shimmering reflection of water, offered continuous reminders that the temple existed within a larger living environment. Monks and caretakers adapted their daily routines to align with the seasonal changes. Morning meditations shifted slightly with light, temperature, and air movement, ensuring comfort and focus. Kitchens altered meal, timing, and content, balancing nutrition with preservation and climate. Sweeping and maintenance took on seasonal significance. Spring petals required careful collection without disturbing natural beauty. Summer dust was removed gently to keep floors cool. Autumn leaves were gathered into manageable piles. Winter snow or frost was brushed away with deliberate attention to avoid harm. Every action, however small, was infused with mindfulness, reflecting the temple's overarching rhythm, steady, attentive, and calm, moving in tandem with nature's cycles. Visitors learned to align themselves with this rhythm. Stepping into a spring courtyard encouraged slow steps and mindful breathing, observing petals and fragrance. Summer courtyards invited shaded wandering, pauses by ponds, and gentle observation of light and shadow. Autumn courtyards inspired reflection on impermanence, observing the movement of leaves and noticing changes in light. Winter courtyards offered grounding through touch, cool stone, and quiet observation of frost and still water. The external seasons became internal mirrors, teaching patience, awareness, and subtle resilience. Every visit became a sensory lesson in time's passage, cultivating calm and attentiveness. Gardens, ponds, and courtyards acted as seasonal anchors within the temple. Blossoms, leaves, and water levels shifted gradually, marking the flow of time. Birds and insects arrived or departed with changing weather, adding life and motion that contrasted with stone and wood stillness. The temple, though static in structure, was alive in rhythm. Every wall, every pathway, and every garden reflected the passage of months, subtly reminding inhabitants and visitors that time moved steadily even within a space devoted to spiritual constancy. Observing this flow became part of the temple's gentle pedagogy, teaching resilience, patience, and the value of quiet attentiveness. Daily rituals were intimately tied to the seasons. Morning water rituals or cleansing steps felt different under spring dew or winter frost. Lanterns reflected differently in summer ponds than on autumn leaves. Meals were seasoned or prepared according to seasonal availability. Clothing and footwear adapted to temperature and humidity. In each adjustment, the temple's inhabitants integrated themselves fully into natural cycles, maintaining continuity in spiritual practice while remaining attentive to the ever-changing environment. These subtle adaptations encouraged visitors to slow, observe, and inhabit time consciously, rather than rush through it. Seasonal change also affected the soundscape of the temple. In spring, birdsong mixed with the swish of sweeping petals. Summer brought cicadas and warm wind. Autumn added rustling leaves and cooling breezes. Winter carried quiet stillness, broken only by footsteps on stone or the crackle of fires. Bells, chants, and footsteps sounded subtly different depending on humidity, air density, or seasonal echoes, creating nuanced auditory experiences. Attentive listeners could detect these changes, appreciating the temple as a living, responsive space that interacted with both people and environment. Light played a central role in seasonal transformation. Spring mornings cast gentle illumination through blossoming branches. Summer sunlight filtered warmly across stone. Autumn afternoons brought elongated shadows that shifted slowly. Winter light was soft, diffused, and reflective of frost or still water. Monks and visitors alike observed these changes, often timing activities, meditation, study, or chores according to optimal light. The interplay of illumination, shadow, and surface created dynamic patterns that encouraged mindfulness, attention to subtle beauty, and a slow, attentive rhythm of movement. Children visiting temples learned these lessons naturally. Spring prompted fascination with fallen petals. Summer encouraged exploration of ponds and shaded corners. Autumn invited leaf play and observation. And winter introduced awareness of temperature, frost, and care when walking. Through these interactions, children internalized seasonal rhythms, alongside lessons of respect, patience, and calm. Even brief visits became layered sensory experiences, offering tactile, visual, auditory, and olfactory cues that attuned young minds to observation, timing, and the quiet unfolding of nature. The quiet endurance of temple walls, roofs, and stone contrasted beautifully with seasonal impermanence. Flowers bloomed and faded, leaves fell and rotted, water levels rose and fell, yet the structure itself remained steadier, reminder that constancy and change coexist. Visitors and monks alike drew comfort from this duality. Life progressed outside and inside the temple, yet a calm foundation supported observation, meditation, and gentle continuity. This balance of change and permanence became a subtle teacher, conveying the lessons of resilience, mindfulness, and patient awareness. Even in moments of minimal activity, the seasons asserted themselves. A gentle breeze in spring carried pollen and fragrance. Summer heat encouraged quiet pauses by water. Autumn leaves drifted slowly across courtyards. Winter frost sparkled in low sunlight. Each sensory detail offered opportunities for observation, reflection, and gentle engagement with time's passage. The temple, though unmoving, transformed continuously, offering a living classroom in patience, adaptation, and calm awareness. Throughout the year, the combination of sensory shifts, environmental adjustments, and human activity created a multi-layered tapestry of seasonal experience. Courtyards, gardens, corridors, and halls responded to light, temperature, wind, and plant life. Monks, visitors, and caretakers moved in careful alignment with these rhythms, cultivating mindfulness through observation, adaptation, and steady routine. The passing of seasons became both a marker of time and a meditative framework, gently guiding attention and encouraging quiet reflection. From the falling petals of spring to winter frost, temples embodied cyclical change without disturbance. Each season encouraged slow awareness, patience, and connection to the natural world. Visitors left the space carrying these lessons quietly, noticing impermanence, appreciating subtle beauty, and sensing time's gentle rhythm in daily life. The temple, while structurally constant, was alive in the flow of seasons, offering a quiet, enduring reflection of nature's influence on human presence, routine, and inner calm. The awareness of seasonal shifts also influenced spiritual practice. Meditation, chanting, and ritual timing were subtly adapted to match environmental conditions, ensuring that body and mind were aligned with ambient temperature, light, and sound. Observing seasonal variations became part of spiritual training. Patience with change, attention to impermanence, and gentle awareness of natural cycles. Visitors entering temple spaces attuned themselves to these rhythms, allowing seasonal presence to shape perception, movement, and reflection. In essence, the temple was both a sanctuary of permanence and a vessel for impermanent beauty. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter each offered their own lessons: renewal, endurance, reflection, and quiet stillness. The rhythms of daily life, sweeping, walking, cooking, tending gardens, ringing bells, interacted seamlessly with seasonal shifts, creating a continuous, gentle flow of experience. Each season shaped perception, movement, and awareness, while the temple's enduring architecture provided stability, context, and grounding. Visitors recognized their own lives mirrored in these cycles. Just as blossoms faded and leaves fell, human experiences changed and passed. As seasons shifted, patience, attentiveness, and care were reinforced daily. Life, like the temple, held both constancy and flux. To inhabit this space was to learn, without instruction, the rhythms of impermanence, the beauty of attentive observation, and the calm endurance that the passing of seasons quietly encourages. And so, through spring's bloom, summer's warmth, autumn's fading light, and winter's frost, the temple became a living canvas. Each step, glance, breath, and gesture was influenced by the season's subtle guidance. Visitors and monks alike moved with the changing air, light, sound, and scent, cultivating awareness and serenity. Life inside temple walls reflected both temporal constancy and the gentle flow of nature, teaching that calm, patience, and reflection are found not in resistance, but in alignment with the subtle, enduring cycles that surround and inhabit us. Temples, though built for devotion, ritual, and spiritual practice, often became quiet havens for a broader array of visitors. Not all who approached their gates were monks, priests, or formally initiated worshippers. Some were travelers seeking a brief respite from long journeys, their feet dusty and weary from dusty roads, uneven paths, or the shifting terrain of mountains and river valleys. For these individuals, the temple threshold offered an invitation to slow down. Removing sandals and stepping barefoot across cool stone floors, they found a subtle pause from the motion and urgency of the outside world. Each step carried the lingering warmth of sun-warmed stones, the faint chill of shadows under eaves, or the tactile impression of carved wood beneath fingers, establishing an immediate sense of grounding and presence. These quiet pauses, though fleeting, were gently sanctioned by the temple's enduring atmosphere. Villagers frequently used temple courtyards as places of rest. During long days spent in fields, tending crops, or caring for livestock, shaded verandas, tree-covered courtyards, and quiet benches provided welcome relief. Children, barefoot and energetic, sometimes ran along stone pathways, slipping between pillars, or balancing carefully along low walls, while adults paused to observe gardens, meditate quietly, or simply watch light shifting across worn floors. The temple's design open corridors, spacious courtyards, and small alcoves accommodated these casual visitors without disrupting formal rituals. Even as monks chanted or swept floors, the presence of temporary guests was absorbed into the daily rhythm, becoming part of a layered tapestry of movement, sound, and stillness. Some visitors arrived deliberately for this calm. Travelers, pilgrims, or local townsfolk often sought the soft shelter of temple spaces to observe birdsong, watch light through latticed windows, or feel the quiet hum of air across polished stone floors. Small ponds, reflecting lanterns or sunlight, provided visual anchors for contemplation, while gardens offered fragrant or tactile interaction. Whether brushing past petals or noticing dewdrops on leaves, these pauses required no ceremony, no formal acknowledgement. The temple offered its serenity freely, without expectation. In this way, temples became more than sacred spaces. They became refuges of ordinary calm, integrating seamlessly into the daily experience of surrounding communities. Even brief visits carried subtle, multisensory experiences. A traveler might pause at a stone basin, letting cold water touch their hands and face, experiencing the contrast between exterior heat or dust and interior coolness. Children might notice the texture of carved stones under fingertips, or the smoothness of wooden railings along cloisters, the soft cooing of birds in gardens, the distant murmur of rivers, or the faint rustle of leaves in evening breezes became layered background textures, blending with footsteps, whispered conversations, or the muted resonance of distant bells. Every sensory impression contributed to a sense of presence, attention, and temporal suspension, allowing visitors to inhabit the temple environment fully, even if only for moments. Some lingered longer, drawn by a sense of calm that was difficult to find elsewhere. Courtyards, cloisters, and shaded alcoves invited exploration, quiet observation, or stillness. Visitors traced the carved stories of pillars and lintels, observing figures polished by centuries of human touch, or noted the delicate arrangement of stones and gravel in a Japanese courtyard. In India, small flowers or tulsi plants were tended attentively, providing fragrant focus points that encouraged slow breathing and observation. In China, ponds reflected light and cloud patterns, reminding viewers of impermanence and gentle change. These quiet engagements allowed each visitor to move at their own pace, participate in the temple's rhythm without formal instruction, and cultivate a soft awareness of time passing in a deliberate, gentle manner. The temple's inclusive nature was evident in how it accommodated these pauses. Monks continued rituals, kitchens prepared meals, and sweeping or maintenance went on uninterrupted. Yet casual visitors were neither pushed nor judged. A traveler resting on stone steps, a villager observing a garden, or a child tracing carvings was accepted as part of the living rhythm of the space. This quiet tolerance reinforced the temple's function as a sanctuary not only of formal devotion, but of human need, attentiveness, and reflection. The presence of such visitors contributed subtly to the overall atmosphere, creating a layered experience of life, movement, and stillness that reflected the richness of centuries-long practice. Small interactions between temporary visitors and temple caretakers were also noteworthy. A monk might nod gently to someone resting in a shaded courtyard, offer a bowl of water to a weary traveler, or allow a child to observe a ritual without expectation of understanding. These gestures were minimal yet meaningful, reinforcing the temple as a space where respect, attention, and presence mattered more than adherence to ceremony. Visitors learned to move with care, observe without intruding, and participate in subtle ways, aligning their behavior with the rhythm of the sacred space. In doing so, the temple cultivated mindfulness and patience, extending its influence beyond formal devotees to a wider community. Seasons added depth to these experiences. Spring invited pausers to observe blossoms drifting across courtyards or petals scattering in water basins. Summer offered shaded reprieves from heat, cool reflections in ponds, and gentle breezes along corridors. Autumn encouraged observation of falling leaves, rustling grasses, and lengthening shadows, while winter prompted appreciation of frost patterns, quiet stillness, and warmth from hearths. Visitors adapted naturally to these seasonal shifts, their movements and attentiveness reflecting the changing environment. In this way, the temple's architecture and natural surroundings worked together to create a consistent, layered experience for those who paused, whether briefly or for extended periods. The movement of light throughout the day also shaped visitor experiences. Morning sunlight cast long, soft rays across stone floors, illuminating patterns in carved wood or painted panels. Afternoon light created warmth and gentle shadow play in cloisters and gardens, while evening light, fading into dusk, transformed courtyards and pathways into serene, reflective spaces. Lanterns and lamps added another layer of sensory experience, casting soft, diffuse light across corridors and halls. Visitors became attuned to these shifts, timing pauses or choosing resting spots according to the changing quality of light, integrating observation into the broader sensory rhythm of the temple. Children, particularly, were drawn to the temple's sensory richness, bare feet on smooth stone, hands tracing carvings, curiosity about water basins or gardens, and observation of small animals or insects fostered learning through touch, sight, and sound. Play and exploration were tempered by the quiet environment, teaching early lessons in mindfulness, careful observation, and respect for space. Parents and elders guided children gently, pointing out the subtle details of architecture, flora, or ritual, reinforcing attentiveness without imposing strict rules. Through repeated exposure, children internalize rhythms of calm, observation, and patience that would carry forward into other aspects of life. Even those who visited solely for shelter or rest were subtly influenced by the temple's rhythms. Travelers, villagers, and wandering visitors absorbed the steady cadence of footsteps, sweeping, cooking, chanting, and ritual without conscious intention. These ambient patterns served as unspoken lessons in presence and patience, guiding perception, posture, and behavior in subtle ways. Time slowed naturally, breathing deepened, movements became careful and deliberate. The temple's influence extended quietly, touching not just those formerly engaged in devotion, but anyone willing to pause, observe, and inhabit the space fully. Auditory experiences were equally important. The distant tolling of bells, soft whispers of prayers, rustle of leaves, faint scraping of brooms, and gentle water trickling in basins formed a layered soundscape that invited reflection. Visitors learned to parse subtle differences in pitch, rhythm, and intensity, adjusting movement and attention accordingly. Children paused mid-step to listen, travelers slowed their pace, and villagers allowed their work to be momentarily suspended. These interactions were subtle, yet profound, shaping awareness, patience, and connection to both environment and community. Seating areas, benches, low walls, and wide steps became places of observation and engagement. Visitors rested on these surfaces, observing gardens, courtyards, water features, or architectural details. The simple act of sitting quietly, watching light, shadow, and movement, became a form of unstructured meditation. Even in motion, as visitors walked slowly along corridors or paths, the temple guided attention. Soft footsteps, quiet conversations, and mindful navigation created a flowing, shared rhythm that balanced formal and informal use of space. Over centuries, the cumulative presence of visitors who paused contributed to the temple's living history. Each person's slow step, gentle observation, or quiet breath added subtle layers to the atmosphere, reinforcing a culture of calm, attentiveness, and respect. This history was imperceptible yet tangible, embedded in the polished stone, smooth wood, and quiet energy of courtyards, halls, and gardens. Visitors, whether aware or not, participated in this ongoing legacy, maintaining continuity of practice, atmosphere, and mindful engagement. Even brief pauses had significance. A traveler leaning against a pillar to rest, a villager observing a garden, or a child tracing a carving carried small acts of presence that reinforced the temple's rhythm. These moments did not disrupt rituals, meals, or daily chores. Rather, they were absorbed into the space, adding richness, texture, and a sense of shared human attention. The temple accommodated these pauses, integrating them seamlessly, teaching the value of gentle observation, mindfulness, and respectful inhabitation. As daylight waned, visitors naturally transitioned out of the temple. Some lingered into dusk, drawn by the soft glow of lanterns, fading sunlight, or the reflection of light in ponds and polished floors. Others departed quietly, leaving footwear, shadows, and subtle impressions of presence behind. The temple remained steady, absorbing traces of human activity, providing continuity, and offering a quiet invitation for future pauses. Even empty, the space carried the memory of those who had stopped, rested, or observed, maintaining its calm, attentive rhythm across time and generations. Temples, therefore, were more than spaces of formal devotion. They were havens for anyone willing to pause, reflect, or simply inhabit quietness. Travelers, villagers, children, and temporary visitors became participants in a subtle, ongoing practice of attention, awareness, and presence. Their pauses, however, brief or extended, added texture, rhythm, and humanity to stone, wood, and gardens, reinforcing the temple's role as both sacred and communal space. The act of pausing, observing, and gently interacting with the environment cultivated mindfulness, patience, and appreciation of impermanence in every visitor. Through centuries, the quiet acceptance of these pauses wove temples into the fabric of everyday life. Villagers incorporated them into routines. Travelers sought them during journeys. Children learned attentiveness and observation within their walls. Even those who never formally belonged, never performed rituals, or never understood doctrines experienced the temple's teachings in subtle ways, in slow steps, quiet breaths, tactile engagement, and attunement to light, shadow, sound, and texture. The temple offered serenity freely, shaping lives gently, quietly, and persistently. The presence of visitors who paused, in effect, completed the temple's cycle. Sacred architecture, gardens, courtyards, bells, and rituals were enlivened by human attention and quiet observation. The space absorbed, reflected, and maintained these interactions, reinforcing a shared rhythm of calm, respect, and awareness. Over centuries, this contributed to the temple's enduring atmosphere, a living, breathing environment shaped as much by those who paused as by those who formally practiced devotion. Thus, the temple became a sanctuary in the broadest sense, a space for worship, a place of reflection, and a refuge for anyone who chose to pause. By allowing visitors to slow their pace, rest, or observe, temples offered lessons in patience, mindfulness, and gentle presence. They wove themselves quietly into lives, not through instruction or ceremony alone, but through space, light, sound, texture, and the continuous, soft engagement of those who entered with openness, curiosity, and respect. As daylight faded and the final lanterns flickered to life, temples entered a gentle transition. The air, warmed by afternoon sun, cooled gradually, brushing softly over stone steps, wooden verandas, and clay rooftops. Shadows lengthened across courtyards, blending with the subtle glow of lamps and candles. In the gardens, leaves rustled quietly in the evening breeze, reflecting soft patterns of movement on polished floors and still ponds. The sounds of human activity diminished, footsteps became lighter and more careful, conversations faded too. Whispers and children's laughter gave way to yawns and slow, steady breathing. Even the wind seemed tempered, brushing lightly through trees and corridors, carrying the faint scent of incense, flowers, and damp earth. The temple, which had been alive with day-long routines, settled into stillness, a calm that was both natural and cultivated. Within this evening quiet, the temple's architecture seemed to exhale. Wooden beams contracted subtly with the cooling air, releasing the soft, almost imperceptible creaks of age. Stone floors, warmed by the afternoon sun, slowly lost their heat, growing cooler beneath bare feet. Courtyards reflected the dimming light in polished stone. Ponds mirrored lanterns like gentle stars fallen to earth, and small alcoves held shadows that stretched slowly along walls. Visitors and monks alike became attuned to these small changes, noticing the subtle difference in sound and texture, learning again that even in stillness, the environment was alive. Each element, the stone, the wood, the water responded to temperature, air, and movement, creating a continuous, quiet dialogue between structure and season, between human presence and natural rhythm. The sounds of the day left gentle echoes. The swish of brooms across stone and gravel could still be heard faintly in memory, carrying the soft rhythm of human attention. The low hum of chants lingered, almost imperceptible, entwining with the natural creak of beams and rustle of leaves. Bells, once rung for morning, midday, or evening ritual, carried faintly through memory and air alike, their resonance slowly fading into the cool night. The experience was not abrupt or jarring. Rather, it was a gradual decline into calm. Every echo served as a reminder of continuity, the presence of those who had walked the halls before, the repeated rhythms of care, prayer, and daily practice that had persisted across centuries. Nighttime also emphasized the subtle presence of small life within the temple. Crickets or cicadas offered a quiet chorus, their chirps harmonizing with distant frogs near ponds. Owls called softly from high rafters, a faint interruption to the otherwise pervasive silence. Occasionally, a dog barked in a distant alley, or a small animal scuttled among stones, adding texture to the soundscape without disturbing peace. The temple's nocturnal life was carefully balanced, allowing awareness and observation to coexist with relaxation. Monks, travelers, and villagers moving quietly through corridors respected this nocturnal calm, their footsteps and voices muted, creating an environment where both human and natural presences could coexist harmoniously. The transition from active day to reflective night was also marked by ritual. Lanterns were extinguished slowly, their glow softening gradually, rather than disappearing abruptly. Incense burned down to faint trails of smoke, filling rooms and corridors with lingering fragrance. Courtyard fires, small and contained, offered warmth without harsh light, while kitchens quieted, leaving only the residual scent of prepared meals. Water basins reflected the dimming sky, small ripples catching lantern light as a reminder of the day's activity now stilled. Visitors learned through these cues to slow movement, pause, and become mindful of the subtle rhythms of the environment. Even in the absence of sound or action, the temple communicated presence, continuity, and serenity. The temple at night became a space where memory, presence, and quiet merged. Each stone, beam, and carved surface seemed imbued with traces of human attention. The careful sweep of a broom, the steady hand placing a flower in a garden, the deliberate brushstroke of calligraphy on a scroll. These marks, faint yet persistent, carried forward into the night, allowing visitors and residents to feel connected to countless lives that had interacted with the space before. Sleep in such an environment was not merely rest. It was participation in centuries of subtle, patient rhythm, where calm, care, and continuity were tangible through tactile and sensory experience. Courtyards offered spaces of reflection under the dimming light. Water in ponds mirrored lanterns and stars, creating soft double images that encouraged quiet observation. Fallen leaves or petals rested undisturbed. Shadows lengthened and shifted, and gentle breezes created faint movement across gardens and corridors. Visitors often paused in these spaces, feeling the shift from active participation to observation. Even those who had been engaged in rigorous rituals during the day found these moments of evening stillness restorative. Inhaling the cool night air, hearing distant animals, and observing flickering light encouraged slow, steady breathing and deep relaxation. The human presence itself softened as night deepened. Monks retired to inner chambers, carefully following footsteps to minimize sound. Travelers rested on mats or benches, allowing fatigue to settle gently. Villagers who had come to observe or rest drifted slowly from courtyards and pathways, leaving behind subtle traces. A sandal left neatly at the edge of a stone step, a flower gently adjusted in a garden, or a handprint on a polished railing. The temple absorbed all of this quietly. Each gesture, however small, contributed to a layered atmosphere, enhancing calm, continuity, and awareness. Lantern light interacted with the architecture to create a calming visual experience. Wooden beams and carved pillars reflected faint glow, casting elongated, gentle shadows that moved as flames flickered. Stone steps and floors held soft reflections, guiding footsteps while reinforcing attentiveness. Even the smallest details, the curve of a carved lotus, the subtle texture of a stone basin, the ripple in a water feature became part of a visual rhythm that encouraged slow observation and mindful movement. Visitors experienced both structure and impermanence simultaneously, noticing how light, shadow, and texture changed subtly with each passing moment. The interplay of sound, scent, touch, and visual cues worked in harmony. The residual hum of chanting, the faint trickle of water in basins, and the soft rustle of leaves combined with the scent of burning incense and cooled stone, creating a multi-layered sensory environment. Touch reinforced presence. Stone, wood, water, and plants responded subtly to human hands and feet, providing a grounding tactile anchor. The cumulative effect of these cues encouraged deep attentiveness, relaxation, and absorption in the space. Visitors and monks alike moved gently, their awareness guided by the temple's subtle, patient design. Even sleeping within temple walls carried a sense of participation. Mats on polished floors or simple bedding near walls allowed individuals to feel connected to centuries of practice. The quiet echo of footsteps from earlier hours, the faint scent of incense, and the gentle expansion or contraction of wooden beams with night air became companions in rest. Sleep was enriched by awareness. The body was calm, the mind attentive yet relaxed, and the environment offered subtle cues of continuity, safety, and serene observation. Nights in temples taught that rest itself could be a form of engagement with history, presence, and rhythm. As darkness deepened, the temple seemed to breathe. Courtyards inhaled and exhaled with the movement of air. Trees shifted gently in the wind. Water basins held reflections that moved imperceptibly, and lanterns dimmed gradually to flickers before extinguishing. Even in near-complete darkness, the temple maintained an environment of calm. Shadows softened, sounds became distant and muted, and visitors felt enveloped by centuries of quiet practice. This environment encouraged reflection on impermanence, continuity, and the gentle passage of time. The final echoes of human activity gradually faded. Swept courtyards, cooled floors, and extinguished lanterns testified to the day's careful rhythm. Bells, once active, had released their resonance into memory. Only the soft movement of air, the distant rustle of nocturnal animals, and occasional natural sounds remained. In this gentle emptiness, visitors and residents felt connected, not just to each other, but to generations of humans who had performed similar routines. The temple became simultaneously still and alive, holding space for presence, reflection, and restorative silence. Night in the temple demonstrated the value of patience, attentiveness, and care over centuries. Each activity of the day, from sweeping and cooking to chanting and walking, left subtle imprints that informed the night. The quiet echo of these actions reinforced calm and mindfulness, offering a restorative environment where sleep, observation, and reflection were deeply intertwined. Visitors and residents experienced a continuity that was temporal and sensory. The temple, though, still carried forward centuries of practice into each night. Ultimately, the temple at night was both sanctuary and teacher. Lanterns extinguished, doors closed, and silence settled. But the space retained its ability to guide, calm, and connect. Every stone, beam, carving, garden, and pond reflected centuries of care and attention. Visitors learned to inhabit the night attentively, observing, feeling, and breathing slowly. Sleep became a continuation of practice, a moment of reflection on impermanence, continuity, and the gentle rhythm of human presence within a larger, enduring environment. Even as the final embers of fires died and nocturnal life moved softly around courtyards and gardens, the temple maintained its quiet authority. Each echo, shadow, and fragrance carried reminders of the day's activities and the centuries that preceded it. For those present, night offered reassurance. History was gentle, time was patient, and calm could be sustained through attentiveness and presence. The temple's walls, both protective and responsive, held visitors in a soft embrace, where echoes of the day, the rhythm of life, and the quiet movement of night blended seamlessly. And so, through the still hours of night, the temple carried on. Lanterns flickered, then faded, footsteps softened to memory, and silence deepened. The day's echoes lingered not harshly, but gently, like a lullaby passed down over centuries. Sleep in such a space was a journey into time, a connection with past, present, and the enduring rhythm of the temple itself. In every breath, touch, and glance, the night invited calm, reflection, and the comforting assurance of continuity. Within these walls, history, human presence, and natural rhythm converged to form an enduring sanctuary of night, echo, and repose. As we draw our journey through the silent temples of Asia to a close, it becomes clear that these spaces were never merely structures of stone, wood, or clay. They were living embodiments of calm, reflection, and the rhythms of daily human life. From the first morning bell to the final flicker of a lantern at night, every movement, gesture, and breath contributed to a quiet continuity that has endured for centuries. The temples invited participation not only through ritual or devotion, but through observation, presence, and simple attentiveness. The act of walking barefoot across smooth stone, pausing beside a pond, or tracing the curves of carved beams allowed visitors to align themselves with the rhythms of time, space, and nature, creating a gentle awareness that was both personal and communal. In each courtyard, garden, and corridor, life moved at its own measured pace. The sweep of a broom, the careful arrangement of petals, the slow simmer of rice over a clay hearth, these small, unassuming actions shaped the atmosphere as much as the grand architecture itself. Across Japan, India, China, Tibet, and countless smaller regions, temples were spaces where the ordinary and the sacred intertwined. Daily routines, from cooking to sweeping, were elevated into acts of mindfulness. Careful repetition offered comfort, both to those performing the tasks and to the visitors who observed. Even the faintest echoes, the rustle of leaves, the drip of water, the distant toll of a bell, became carriers of presence and continuity. Visitors, both transient and regular, found that the temple welcomed pauses of all kinds: travelers seeking rest, villagers taking a moment of quiet, children exploring tactile and visual textures, all participated in a subtle choreography of calm. There was no expectation, no judgment, the temple simply absorbed their presence, offering serenity in return. Each pause, whether fleeting or prolonged, became a quiet thread in the temple's living tapestry, weaving human awareness into the ongoing narrative of the place. Over centuries, this inclusion of the casual, the transient, and the curious has shaped temples into spaces that are simultaneously sacred, communal, and deeply human. The sensory richness of temples also played a profound role in their enduring influence. Incense curled through air that held centuries of fragrance, carrying scent like a memory through time. Water basins reflected sky, light, and movement, providing subtle meditation on impermanence and presence. Wooden beams expanded and contracted with the seasons, producing faint sounds that blended naturally with wind, birdsong, or distant chanting. The touch of smooth stone, the coolness of polished wood, and the soft texture of gardens invited careful observation. Together, these details created an environment in which mindfulness arose organically, without instruction or ceremony, teaching visitors to inhabit space attentively and slowly. Temples also provided a vivid demonstration of the passage of time and seasonal cycles. Spring brought blossoms and renewal. Summer offered shade, warmth, and insect choruses. Autumn carried drifting leaves and soft reflections. Winter delivered frost, stillness, and quiet introspection. Each change of season influenced light, sound, and temperature, subtly guiding movement, perception, and attention. Visitors and residents learned to attune themselves to these shifts, understanding that calm, patience, and reflection were not static states, but evolving responses to a living environment. The temple, though permanent in structure, remained flexible in experience, adapting to the rhythms of nature and human engagement alike. Architecture itself told stories, silently teaching resilience, craft, and continuity. Carved stones, wooden beams, and tiled roofs endured centuries of weather, touch, and human presence. Pillars narrated myths, deities, and historical figures, while floors bore the smoothness of countless footsteps. Even the smallest design choices, a raked gravel garden, a carefully placed stone, a water channel shaped how people moved, paused, and reflected. By engaging with these elements, visitors participated in a dialogue across generations. The temple became a bridge between past and present, a space where human presence and natural rhythms coalesced into enduring calm. Importantly, these temples illustrated the profound impact of quiet, ordinary practices. Sweeping courtyards, tending gardens, preparing meals, lighting lanterns, and copying texts were not trivial tasks. They were acts of care, attention, and presence. Each contributed to the subtle energy of the space, creating an atmosphere of calm that touched all who entered. Monks, caretakers, villagers, and transient visitors all participated in this unspoken choreography. The repetition of small acts over centuries fostered a culture of mindfulness, patience, and attentive observation, demonstrating that serenity is cultivated gradually, through consistent care rather than dramatic moments. Night, in particular, revealed the temple's enduring grace. As lanterns dimmed, doors closed, and the air cooled, temples transitioned into a profound stillness. The echoes of the day footsteps, chants, sweeping, cooking lingered softly, teaching that time itself can be felt and observed. Darkness did not bring fear but calm, with soft rustles of leaves, distant animal calls, and flickering shadows composing a subtle symphony of presence. Visitors resting within these walls were cradled by centuries of care, enveloped in history, and guided into reflection. Sleep became part of the temple's practice, extending mindfulness into rest, allowing body and mind to synchronize with the quiet rhythm of the space. Ultimately, the true legacy of these temples lies not only in their architecture, rituals, or religious significance, but in their capacity to cultivate human attentiveness and presence. They're spaces where time slows, where ordinary actions become meaningful, and where the world outside, its noise, haste, and complexity can be softened. Anyone who paused within these walls, whether monk, villager, traveler, or child, became part of this rhythm. Every gesture, observation, and breath contributed to an ongoing narrative of serenity and reflection, echoing across generations and across space. As we leave these temples, whether in imagination or memory, we carry with us lessons of quiet attention. The sweep of a broom, the smell of incense, the touch of stone, the sound of water, the faint glow of lanterns all remind us that calm is cultivated through small, deliberate actions repeated with care. Life itself, like temple routines, is composed of ordinary moments infused with presence. By attending to these moments, we discover continuity, patience, and resilience, the same qualities that have allowed temples to endure for centuries. In the end, the echoes of silent temples remind us that history is not only found in grand events or dramatic stories, it exists in the quiet repetition of everyday tasks, in the careful observation of seasons, in the patient interaction between humans and their environment. Temples offer a gentle guide to inhabiting time slowly, to moving attentively, and to resting mindfully. They show that calm, like presence, is not imposed but cultivated, growing gradually through care, observation, and alignment with rhythm both human and natural. As your eyes grow heavy and your breathing slows, imagine walking softly through a temple courtyard at dusk, lanterns dimmed, water reflecting light, incense curling faintly into the air. Feel the cool stone beneath your feet, hear the distant rustle of leaves, and sense the lingering echoes of those who have walked before. These silent companions carry the lessons of centuries: to be attentive, to pause, to move slowly, and to rest gently. They remind us that peace can be found in ordinary rhythms, that history can soothe as much as it informs, and that the quiet, enduring presence of a temple can live within us long after we leave its walls. In these quiet moments, as the temple and the world fall asleep, we understand the essence of their enduring beauty, not in grand gestures or monumental events, but in repetition, presence, and the patient attention of countless hands, eyes, and hearts. The echoes of silent temples are not only sounds, they are invitations to slow, to notice, and to dwell calmly within the flow of life. They teach that serenity is a practice, cultivated in small, deliberate ways, carried forward by those who pause, and shared quietly with anyone who chooses to enter, observe, and rest. May the echoes of these temples linger gently with you, a reminder that calm endures, that history breathes softly, and that the ordinary, when attended to with care, becomes extraordinary in its capacity to soothe, center, and guide. In every sweep of a broom, in every flicker of lantern light, in every whisper of leaves and water, the temple's legacy lives quiet, patient, and endlessly serene.